Welcome to Dialog Choices podcast. We're back. Remember this podcast? It's been a while. I don't remember how long it's been. How long has it been? Checking our
I need to check now. But
my
it's been
bookmark
like 2
of Dialog
months.
Choices audio log. Fuck!
We
It's
have a
using
podcast?
soft internet dates. Hey, that's actually
What?
funny.
I mean,
That's actually funny. I did a fake out about episode 69 a long time ago, and then the
Nice.
last episode we did was episode 69. Which is the one about
Yes.
PAX, which wasn't right after PAX. It took us weeks to talk about PAX because we needed to get the right people together. But when I look at the
It's been 2.5
fucking wiki,
months.
it doesn't say, or not the wiki. When I look at our SoundCloud, it doesn't say when the episode went up because fucking the internet refuses to use dates anymore. They always say like vague time ago.
2
like-
months, 3 months.
Podcast
Yeah.
69.
Just say the soft.
Googling my
say
own.
the soft date so we can,
It says a month ago. It's unhelpful. There you go. After
I
I
feel
click,
like that makes
after I open it on YouTube and then click on it, it says September 26th. There we go.
see 2 months because it's the. 13th.
I feel like that makes a lot less sense than it probably is supposed to in some weird person's mind. Like I understand the within the I would say even maybe the first 48 hours
Been a
of
month and
something
a
being
half.
posted, you can do the thing where you say it was posted 3 hours ago or whatever. But the moment that I think it reaches a certain point, it does need to just be a date. Stop saying 3 weeks ago. I don't care if it was 3 weeks ago. Tell me what fucking day it was posted. What
I agree
day
with this.
did you post this video?
I very much agree with this. I think that the standard is to go for if it's a week, then it's 3 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago, and then after that it's just a date. Even a
What
week
if your
ago is
email
just-
was like that?
What the fuck?
Oof! Don't
Wait.
do that.
What?
You all right over there?
Keith is seeing the revelations of the universe.
So I'm looking at my own video of the last podcast. This is getting just enjoy the weird what this podcast
It's
is
very meta.
apparently. Yeah. So
It's meta
the
podcast.
you can see
Speaking
this
of
for
which-
yourself if you want to, but the progress
the
bar
page.
is full of chapters somehow.
That's
Oh yeah, let me check. Hold
Yeah,
on.
What? That's
Lufthansa,
wild.
Lufthansa cabin crew strike, guest bed, eggs, egg escape, kitchen trauma, living by yourself, organizing the kitchen, going to Seattle, socially brave people, the ugly American, day 2-3, the annex, arcade, Seattle, Steve Hobbs, PAX West demographics, early PAX West
Steve
entertainment,
Hobbs?
Pokemon panel, therapists and games, voice acting panels, Ellen McLean, pineapple juice, drag queens, Seattle drag scene, and then Seattle culture starts at 53 minutes, and then there's no more chapters for the remaining 2 hours of the podcast.
I think somebody must have.
Did someone
added-
make that, but then stop
Yes.
making that? How did they do that?
How
People
did
could
they do
just
that? That is a good.
people can manually submit chapters to your videos without permission.
No.
Like, how-
that is.
How are those chapters
No.
there? There's no on-screen.
The only way- yeah.
Previously, I knew that sometimes YouTube would auto-generate chapters based on on-screen text, which there isn't.
Yeah, because the
That's-
fact that it says day
yeah, they do- it does
2-3,
that.
that tells me that it's doing it based on subtitles.
But
Like
there's
it's
no-
grabbing
it's
it.
doing it based on
what
their
it thinks is being
auto-generated
said.
subtitles.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's weird how those do sound like they function as topic chapters as much as there can be on this thing. Like a series of them in a row are essentially the panels we talked about.
But
But then
like
it-
it's
but
so
then it
dumb.
just
Why would
stops
you
an hour
do?
in.
Why would you have
it must have-
drag queens as one and then Seattle drag scene? Why would you make those two separate
It's just a
things? And they're
it's a
not even
subheading.
they're literally minutes apart from each other.
It's like a
I wonder if
subheading
drag
of topics
queens
and
that-
whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, drag queen is at 50, and then Seattle drag scene is 51. It's a minute. What? Why would you make that?
Yeah.
That has to be auto generated. A computer has to be that stupid. Not a
has to
human
be.
would do that.
I'm so sorry if you was a person.
There's no way. There's no way you're micromanaging this. And why would you do that? Why would you make it every minute of a different scene? That's not what the point of it is. The point is to be supposed to be overarching stuff. Yeah, they talked about this for 10 minutes
Yeah.
or whatever.
Anyway, if you're wondering why no podcasts, there's been a long string of things that happened, which is that after we did the last podcast, we have had an influx of people in the Discord a bit for the collaboration stuff, And so we ended up doing 2 separate like drawing streams instead of podcasts. And then
a lot of fun.
but then also what happened is like we already like to look at our bizarre recording schedule, or at least my version of it and so on. Like what normally happens every week is that Thursday nights I meet up with Bird to record something. So we've been playing Bloodborne for a while. And then Friday nights I meet up with what had been for a while Bird and Colonel to play Monster Prom. And then no one else is really showing up. Then Saturday there's like a peak of availability and like more people would show up and we'd play like stuff like golf or whatever. Then Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific, we record the podcast, and sometimes we stream it, but usually not. And then at 7 p.m. that same day, we then play Final Fantasy with Effie and Andrew. So it's like it's this big, like, complicated, structured thing. But we've had an influx of people in general, and also Jackbox 9 and Overwatch 2 and Monster Prom 3 all came out, like all at once.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh fuck. So Fridays we've been trying to do our playthrough of Outbreak for Resident Evil, and it has a specific set of people. So that makes it so that anything else we want to try to do then goes on Saturday. But like if we do like Jackbox stream followed by an Overwatch stream, we're like, when the fuck do we play like Monster Prom? Like obviously we want to play the new Monster Prom that came out. And then we're like, well, I already meet up with Colonel and Andrew every Sunday at 2, and sometimes Bird shows up for that. What if the 4 of us just did Monster Prom instead of the podcast? So we had 2 drawing streams followed by me being in LA for a week, and maybe and I think other weekend stuff has happened where I wasn't available. And then also the last 2 weekends we were playing, that way I was available, we were playing Monster Prom 3. So that's why there's been no podcast for like 2 months, because it's really hard to juggle all of these things at once. And yeah, 3 extremely us relevant sequels happened in like a week of each other between Overwatch and Jackbox and Monster Prom or whatever. So that's what's up. But in fact, we were gonna do Monster Prom today, but Bird forgot and double scheduled, and so we're doing a podcast. We're like, hey, remember the podcast? And even while we're doing the podcast, the door is being beaten down to be like, hey, what about the next drawing stream instead?
Wait, there's people suggesting that already?
Well, that's because what Purple wants to do.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Purple's always waiting for the next drawing stream.
Purple.
There's a lot of
also
people. It's complicated. There's so many people.
Well, it's a good problem to have.
We're starting to turn into like fucking FaZe Clan or who are the Minecraft people? The
Minecraft? The other one.
These days there's a billion Minecraft people, but there was a Minecraft group that was like a group, not Dream, like the British people.
Oh, I don't know.
Yogscast or whatever?
Yogscast, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, Yogscast.
Yeah. It's like a bit Minecraft amalgam. Like,
except without the budget.
We're quickly gonna hit a point where like 4 of us are playing Outbreak, and then like 3 more of us are playing Overwatch and streaming it at the same time, and the audience is like, which part of the same group do I watch?
Both of them. That's why we have multiple screens.
Granted, we're also a strange like grab bag of who actually streams during these and who doesn't. Because me, Bird, and Andrew streams, and no one else does.
I put it up on my YouTube channel though. After you edit it.
Well, some of these things you put on YouTube, but you don't stream Overwatch. Your audience has no idea you play Overwatch unless they listen to the podcast.
Some of them know.
You play a lot of Overwatch.
Some of my audience knows.
You've been eating your Lucio O's.
My Lucio O's.
Have we talked about Outbreak on this podcast yet?
No.
No.
I don't think
Outbreak is one of the coolest Resident Evil games ever made. It's just really fucking rad. It's really interesting. So for context, we've been playing Outbreak via the like fan servers that you log into via like a forum, which is really strange, and it's incredible that works at all. And it mostly works. The netcode is not up to snuff, and it's hard to say which parts are because it's an ancient PS2 game and which parts are because that's just like the current reality of the server that it runs on or whatever. I have no idea. But there's definitely like there's lag and getting stuck on things, and when I get all 4 of our perspectives and edit them together into a split screen, I can definitely see the massive out of sync nature of what's actually happening on everyone's screens. Like everyone's essentially playing. If you're in the same room, you're kind of playing different games sometimes. Where you think you see people who are shooting zombies are in places, but on their screen they're doing it in a different place, or the zombies in a different place, and it's just chaos.
That's terrifying. How does it keep? Okay.
Well,
They
to some
probably
extent,
have
that's what
some-
modern video games are like too. Like how you can turn a corner in a shooter and then still die to someone that shot you, and then on their kill cam they shot you before you turn the corner. Like, all online games are verisimilitudinous at best. Like they are not actually working the way that you think they're working, and it's lies.
The trick is because the lag, at least specifically for Resident Evil Outbreak, the lag would probably have been like half a second because it's all, well, probably not DLS, not the dial-up anymore, but all DLS, like 1 megabyte if you're lucky or something like that. Because it's a game from 2004,
Yeah,
I think, and so it's I imagine
well,
they
it was
have-
made to Resident Evil games, so it's probably. I mean, if that's the case, I think Japan had fiber back in the early
No.
2000s. Yeah.
No
Uh,
way. Are you sure?
You have to remember how small. You have to remember how incredibly small that country is. Everything is so cram packed together. Fiber is super easy. They just hang it up on the telephone poles and call it done. Like it's super easy to put fiber in Japan. Here, no, it takes you like half of
the
a
US,
small
yes.
nation's budget just to give you fiber in like a city here. The damn place is so big and spread out and has to be all underground and tear up the road and just it's awful.
what I find interesting
I'm really-
about the existence of this game is the fact that like Resident Evil had like a really good trilogy, and then it like kind of had this slump in quality where it was making either bad choices or uninspired choices, or it was just repeating itself or getting stale around the time of like Code Veronica and Zero. Like that's the narrative that I've always heard. I haven't played those games yet, partly because they sound like the least good ones to play. And then they had that radical movement of reinventing the series with Resident Evil 4, right? Like they worked so hard to make Resident Evil 4 this big revitalization of the series that they accidentally made Devil May Cry in the process. Like the first Resident Evil 4 became Devil May Cry, and then they tried again at making Resident Evil 4, is what I understand basically happened.
That's wild. That is so wild.
But while that was happening, after Resident Evil 0, but before Resident Evil 4, both Outbreak games happened. So one of the most interesting things in the series happened in the background and is completely forgotten by so many people, that to the point where people keep like responding to these streams being like, "This, I don't know what game this is. This game exists? A multiplayer old school Resident Evil game exists?" I've been anticipating playing this game for an eternity because I saw like old magazine ads about it, but like it was like seeing Phantasy Star Online and be like, "No, you can scream in 27 languages," and I'm like, "Cool, I'll never get to play this game because you need magic devices to do it and so on, because it's a magical console internet game that was just like an alien concept." So I just knew that they vaguely existed, but didn't understand how they existed. But what's fascinating is that like this is they handle co-op horror in such an interesting way that makes the entire game feel desperate, despite the fact that it's multiplayer. Like usually the worst thing you can do to horror is make it multiplayer, because of the like there's such a exponential increase in power when you mix players together. Like it's like impossible to make it threatening. This is a game, but like this is, old school Resident Evil is the franchise where like I have a highlight that I uploaded. I think it's just called The First Zombie, where I died to the first zombie in Resident Evil 1 like 4 times because I'm just so completely unprepared for how astonishingly difficult it is to kill a zombie in old school Resident Evil games and how like persistent they are. And that completely holds true in Outbreak. So like you're playing as 4 people who are struggling to even find weapons that are effective at all, and all forms of melee combat involve being up close to these nightmare people that will just mow you down. And so it's incredibly desperate, and it's really exciting to just sit there and like struggle and all like be shouting all the things you're discovering and splitting up and trying to figure out the environment and so on. Which leads into like the other cool element, which is that like of the levels we played, each one has like a different structure and like plot and like through line. Like you'd expect that each one would be like when you play like Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, I think it's called, the multiplayer one. It's just like a bunch of like Castlevania-ish levels, and they all kind of feel like they're themed differently, but they're all like the same premise. But instead, this Outbreak riffs on Resident Evil formulas to such an extent that the first level essentially like preemptively invents Left 4 Dead years before it happens.
It is. That's a good point.
The first level is Left 4 Dead. You all start together, and there's a series, and it's mostly a linear level, but there's like spots where you can barricade and spots where you can get special ammo drops and solve little puzzles. But you are all collectively struggling to stick together and keep and like pick each other up and knock things off of each other and keep each other going while a variety of threats happen. And there's various like, oh, you gotta hold out here for a few minutes and blah blah blah, or barricade this window, while just a wall of zombies is coming at you from the direction you're coming from and chasing after you. Like, it's extremely Left 4 Dead, but it came out in 2003, the same year as the first person Resident Evil, because there was also a light gun game. Like,
I think your commentary about making a co-op horror game not be super easy is like bang on point. I never really thought about it like that because, well, I wasn't thinking about it like that. When you're interacting with a game, you just sort of take it as it is. You're not like, what if this was single player? It would be even harder or anything. The thing is, like, even like games like Project Zomboid or Dead by Daylight, or actually Dead by Daylight is not the one. 7 Days to Die, that's one I'm thinking. In single player, they're super difficult. They're very, very sluggish, and I like those games, but they're very difficult in single player. If you're playing with just another person, two people, you can cover each other's back so much that the game assumes a very different pacing. But what they do with the Outbreak though is that everybody's just constantly being swarmed. Like, playing together doesn't work as nearly as well as you would think, because honestly, there's I don't know, there's not much that players can do to help each other out. I think in what's the name of the game? Outreach? No,
Outbreak.
Outbreak.
That's the one. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's not. It's still It's very much Resident Evil. It's because it's still about like figuring out this puzzle or whatever is going on. I think the puzzles obviously are kind of on the easy side of things compared to the Resident Evil 1 and 2.
It's such a struggle to even get from place to place to do the components of the puzzle without dying.
Yeah, that is the biggest challenge. And I think I have problems with the difficulty, honestly, because I think easy difficulty is it's difficult, but it's not impossible by any means. It's easy, or it's easier than normal, but normal is just so difficult. Like if you're gonna play the game on normal, you're just gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. You're never gonna see the end of the mission unless you like try trial and error. I cannot imagine what would be like to play this game without voice chat. That is just, maybe we should try it, like first mission of the second game. Just do it without voice chat, just between ourselves, and see what kind of nightmare we create.
That'd be awful.
That would be awful, but like for half an hour, see what happens.
No.
You can stream your side, Keith. Just don't hear from us.
No.
Help! Help! Because you can move
Please
the joystick.
help me.
That's the one. Oh boy.
It's I can't believe that originally you had to play it on PS2 on old internet with zero voice over or voice communications at all, and you just had to like just somehow cooperate with three people where you couldn't share information with each other or tell what's happening, because it has a fixed camera angles and it's these huge environments and so on. Like, we immediately lose track of each other and have to constantly try to communicate where each other are and so on. And even that's a struggle, because like it's actually really hard to convey information over voice communications. Like, between Outbreak and Among Us, like we've had like a crash course lately on just how difficult it is to convey ideas to each other, and like when everyone else is trying to talk, and being able to like get anything conveyed. And yeah, it's a lot. We consistently die 2 or 3 times just trying to like collectively understand what the map's even like, essentially, and like figure out like what its pace is, what its goal is, and like gather intel about what the puzzles are and where they are and where we need to go, and then we like iterate on that. And like it's like you have to be a very specific kind of player, I think, to want that, because it's like, for me, it's exciting. Like, we're like trying to figure out what this place wants from us and so on. Yeah, It's,
just
it's
like,
really
yeah,
challenging, but it can also be really
mhm,
frustrating, I think, if you're not the right kind of
yeah.
player that would want
Or
that kind of
or playing
experience.
with a woman. If you play with a woman character, then you have 0 health.
He's talking about how Bird would only play as the female characters who all seem to have
Oh,
reduced health points.
Jesus, it's
So
yeah.
he was just
why
dying
do they
constantly.
have reduced health points though?
Sexism.
Is that really just it? It's just they
It most
just think
likely
that
is,
women
yeah.
have left less health points.
Gender.
It's gender,
Increased
yeah.
dexterity and charisma and reduced
Well,
hit points
like,
and
I'm
strength.
just, but like, why?
They
I'm just
fight
thinking of
with
like
purses.
from a what's it called?
Fortunately, they don't.
From a
Not
gameplay
anymore.
standpoint, what is the value? What do you why would you want to pick a character in a game about survival that has less health? Doesn't that
You
seem
have one more inventory slot, I believe, is the
every
Blackbird
every
kept saying.
character
That's
has
not a-
different every character has different perks, like fairly significant ones that we didn't necessarily always fully understand, but like
Mhm.
like what is it, Toaster was basically playing as Leon Kennedy, so he had like this like chance of critical hitting and getting headshots in the way that you can in other games, in the other Resident Evil games, that were, because like in old school Resident Evil games you don't aim manually, you just vaguely raise your gun at enemies and shoot. And like Chris could get I think could get a headshot crits with increased chances and so on. And like so like Toaster's character could do that. His character could kick. So like he could kick enemies away. And like that'd be a really
Which
useful
is
thing for other
amazing
people
when
to
you run
have.
out of weapons and ammo.
Yeah. I know that Colonel's character had a huge amount of health compared to other characters, but he also couldn't fit in certain things because he was this huge dude.
Mhm.
So like he couldn't
I
hide in
also always
lockers.
start with a handgun, so
Yeah.
that was nice.
My character only started with a knife, but he could
oh god,
he had wrenches he could throw at people. And
Infinite wrenches. I never learned that.
I did not
think
have
I ever
infinite
saw you
wrenches. I just had a bag of wrenches. They had a number, but I
going
did it,
around with a
and I had
bag
some
of
kind of crafting supplies I never fully understood, where you could, if you found specific combinations of things, that you could combine them to like craft weapons, like in Dead Rising 2. So like I could get a. This is the one that was just intuitive, so I didn't even realize it was an ability of mine that no one else could use. But like you can grab pesticide and a lighter and make a flamethrower. And I didn't realize that was like my unique ability, and that everyone else couldn't do that. At least one of the characters that Bird played as had an entire second inventory of herbs that she just started with. But she just had a bunch of healing supplies at the beginning, but he would just forget, which wasn't very helpful. So he was playing a character that would die more easily and would forget about the thing that she was getting that would help him survive. So it's a lot.
very difficult to control the characters and
It
then
is.
opening the inventory, and there's lag. I'm trying to make excuses for Bird.
Almost every button is reversed and strange, so it takes some time to get used to the buttons that you use to get through your inventory. And to highlight how co-op focused this game is, like, we've played, like, you've seen the inventory grid from Resident Evil 4, and like
Mhm.
in Resident Evil 5 you have an inventory grid of like 9 slots per character or something. In Resident Evil Outbreak you have 4 slots per character. You can only hold 4 items.
Isn't it the same amount as Resident Evil 1? I think.
It
Or
might
is
be
it 6?
Jill's inventory in Resident Evil 1.
No, Jill has more. I think Jill has. Do you remember if Jill
Does
had
Jill have
6 or
more?
8?
I thought Jill had
has,
fewer
e-
inventory. I don't know. The two have
No,
different
she has more.
inventory sizes in the original, but I don't know what they are. But
Yeah.
4 seems exceptionally low. I feel
It
like
does, it does. I
Resident
think
Evil
it's
1
6
might be
and 8.
6 and 8.
Yeah. And you played with Jill, so you had 8.
But 4
I
is an
believe.
extremely small inventory. It's brutal, especially when you think about like having any spare ammo is a second inventory slot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have enough space for one weapon, ammo for that weapon, one key item you're probably using to forward the plot, and one healing item. Like beyond that, you just need to leave them for other people or hand them off to people, or like
But I
just
honestly
remember
felt
where
that-
you left things and come back for them when you need them, because you probably will.
I honestly felt that inventory space wasn't the biggest problem, or the biggest challenge, I should say. It's not really a problem. I think it works well, but it's the navigation and then just trying to figure out what to do next is the biggest issue for me.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like you can go around being. I mean, I did have more health than you guys, but you can go around being a little bit injured. You can get about without having a healing item. It's dangerous, but generally, Like if there's zombies in the room you're going into, go back, and generally that's not a problem. Although on higher difficulties, and when I say higher, I mean not easy. On normal difficulties, the zombies just spawn so often. It's like once per minute there's a new zombie in any room that you're in, and I think that's too much. It's like normal is okay. If you have finished this level already and you know what you're gonna do, good luck. You might not survive because I don't think anybody can beat that game blind on normal.
I don't think you're beating any of those levels on your first try. Just in general.
Oh, I mean, even not even first try. I mean, like if we kept at it, did we actually beat the first map on normal? Maybe we did.
I'd have no idea. Toaster was hosting the whole thing, and I didn't know what he was doing behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he wasn't tweaking difficulties.
Yeah.
All I know is the game never felt like it was easy, even though I think at some point we played levels on easy. I couldn't tell.
We definitely played the hospital level on easy, and we played the last level. The last level was incredible, really pretty, and like in it, like the whole map probably would have been good enough for a full-on Resident Evil, like this in the style of the first and the second game. Just add like proper storylines and creepy stuff and puzzles.
The fifth level felt like a full-on Spencer Mansion situation, all the way down to like it even had like you go into like the elevator to find the secret lab and everything after you were already in a giant mansion to begin with. It was shocking how much real estate there is in that game across its 5 levels compared to your average Resident Evil game. Also, we're half an hour in. I should just call this out. Colonel's not sick. He just got complaints from his neighbors about how loud he was being, because for us, like 2 p.m. is like for him 10 p.m. So it's already nighttime, even when we're recording this podcast. So he's got to be quiet until he can soundproof his new home.
Basically,
that is what's going on.
Lower register, I suppose, is the term. Do I sound sick though?
That's often why somebody talks that quietly for that long. Oh, because you sound like a disappointed teacher. That took us aside.
Yeah,
it's like
outside on that last level, it was really pretty, that area with the river, because you could see the sun and the bridge. The bridge was enormous. That was really pretty. Really, really well done.
There was so much game. Also, birds are evil.
Birds?
Toaster was the king. Toaster was the king of being murdered by crows. It just kept happening. No, it was there's multiple parts where you have to like make a jump or shimmy across a ledge.
Oh, right.
And birds could just peck you to death and make you fall off and die. And it kept happening to Toaster. He was like the most capable player, but birds would take him out every time in like the first 2 or 3 levels.
Yeah, he carried us in was it the hospital level? The one that had well, I guess this is spoilers for the Let's Play. The one that had lickers. Where is it? Lickers? I don't remember. Yeah. No, hunters. Yes. I don't know if it was the hospital level. I don't think so.
I think
no, it wasn't. It was the other one.
It was the apartment complex. I think had the one where we'd split up and half the place was on fire. And if you took the crazy elaborate side pass, you'd eventually wrap all the way around. So like that, yeah. I think the hospital had hunters and the apartment complex had lickers.
Yes.
It ends with Mama Liquor, which is a nightmare.
Those are some good memories from that game.
It's a new game. Now we're gonna start. Yeah, we're gonna do volume 2 with Andrew now, because Bird does not want to play anymore.
Oh, well, he did not have a good time, especially on the last attempt.
Oh, he was dead for like 50% of every stream, and I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. Everyone's got to be kind of self-sufficient here.
Yeah, basically.
There would be ones where I would pick him back up and come and rescue him like 3 times in a row, and I'm like, I don't even have a weapon. Like, this is the best I could do. You got to make different choices, please.
Yeah,
and then he'd be dead again.
Maybe he was. Yeah, that is actually the making different choices is a pretty important aspect of the game. A lot of my play style, or not play style, I suppose, but a lot of my what I was doing is I wasn't finding an easy way into wherever I was going. So I would just go back and go into another place and not really achieve much for like half an hour maybe, or however long, because I was in dialogue with you guys in Discord. So for people to play this without voice, you wouldn't know if the other players are doing anything useful unless they all of a sudden in their inventory, because you can see other people's inventory, unless all of a sudden you saw them getting the item that you know they need. Because if you're doing it blind, you don't even know that they have the right item. Like somebody gets a sealed canister or whatever, and like, okay, whatever, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Oh yeah, like someone can just straight be doing the objective for you. I think that's why the last level in particular breaks its rules a little bit. When you successfully, when we successfully, it wasn't as noticeable because we were all basically there. But when you finish combining the chemicals that you have to do to make the cure, it definitely just teleported us all to that room.
Oh, that happened. I think that happened in the first game, in the first campaign as well.
Yeah, like it was relatively rare the game would do that, but that was like a rule break it would do, to just be like, okay, fuck it, you guys all need to be on the same page. Because like in that one in particular, it puts you all in the same room, and then you encounter plot, character, and then time limit starts. So it's very important that for the experience to make any sense, for you to be in the place the story is happening. Otherwise, like, you're just gonna be in a random part of the map, and suddenly a time limit's happening for reasons you don't know. And it does also, like, every time a cutscene triggers, everyone sees it, even if you don't understand the context, because somebody else triggered it across the whole map. Like, I triggered the frogs cutscene, and like, here's this new enemy type, by the way, and you guys were literally on a different floor. So it was just a unique problem for me, but everyone got to watch the intro and wonder what was happening.
Well, we saw the frogs in the intro. I think like oh right, I was thinking of then later on we did go to where you were at the time, but you just spent so long in that one place because of the frogs, I believe, that it's just we were just hanging out elsewhere. Me and Toaster. I didn't find the writing to be good though. In when I say good, I mean not, it's not going to be like an eloquent, amazing writing. Oh, this is the best well-written game ever or whatever. Obviously, it isn't. It's Resident Evil. But I didn't find or rather, I didn't think that the writing compelled us through the story. As in Resident Evil 1, it does. Like, it's Barry, and that's the whole thing.
Barry!
And like, I think the writing in Resident Evil 1, it absolutely, and in the second and third,
but also which 1, 2, and 3, the remakes?
Yeah, they're more or less the same, I suppose. Well, they're better in the remakes. The writing is.
Yeah, the remake. The remake of 1 had to do a lot because the original one was completely baffling. Like, it was just, it was the quality of voice acting and writing was so astonishingly just anyone could get in. That's when you had the original, like, Jill, you're the master of unlocking, and like, you were almost a Jill sandwich. I'm like, who is saying any of this?
But it carries you though. It's like the itchy tasty notes and things like that. It like it incentivizes.
Well, they kept
you to
the
move
itchy
forward.
tasty note because that was better than Jill, the master of unlocking.
They didn't keep the master of unlocking, I don't think, did they?
No, they didn't.
No.
That's my example of what they changed, because they kept the itchy tasty note. But I grew up not playing any of the Resident Evil games, but I read the books. I was like, video game books. These, like, that's what got me into reading. Like, I went from like Goosebumps to Animorphs to the Jedi Apprentice series. That was like the books that take place between episode 1 and 2 of Star Wars, to like novelizations of the Resident Evil franchise. So there's one book based on every Resident Evil from 0 through Code Veronica, and then another book that takes place between each of those that's just made up by the author. And so when they novelized the original book, the original game, this poor author has to like make sense of completely inane dialogue and events, and also the fact that both Jill's and Chris's campaigns are happening in the same building at the same time somehow. So they reinterpret the entire story to be possible with the both of them doing stuff at the same time. So Barry and Claire Claire, maybe Claire, I don't remember. I'm not sure if it's Claire.
It's No, Claire is the second one. It's the one from the third. It's Jill Valentine. Yeah.
But well, both no, it's not Jill, because Jill's the main. Yeah, I know Jill and Chris are the main characters, but their side characters are Barry and I think
I don't remember.
Claire. Maybe no, Claire Redfield is his third game.
Yeah,
Who's
Claire
the
Redfield is from the second
It's
game.
whoever's from Resident Evil 0.
Well,
The protagonist
it's
of Resident
Wesker.
The protagonist of Resident Evil
There's-
0 is the side character in Chris's campaign in Resident Evil 1. But they had to make sense of both those at the same time, but they also had to rewrite dialogue to not be insane. So like Barry would like find lockpicks and be like, "Here, you take this. It's we both know it's better. It's more use in your hands." And like they'd have to like make something, like write something reasonable instead of Jill, the master of unlocking.
It's wild.
Please.
But what I was trying to say is that the writing is part of the reason you move on and explore and continue pushing forward in Resident Evil 1 and 2, or any Resident Evil really, or as a principle anyway. But in Outbreak, the writing didn't contextualize what we were doing. I liked the last story notes of the fourth scenario. Those are good. Those are a nice reward. I like the detail of the scientist being like, if you're gonna make a weapon, just pure damage can't be the only thing. And I'm listening to him and I'm like, is this guy a good guy? Is he saying that you can, need scruples and stuff? And he's just not. Oh, he needs to be beautiful as well. He says, and it's just like, oh, so I like that because that was nice. But apart from that,
could remake the world and make it as beautiful as me.
Yes. But apart from that, it was the writing was completely inconsequential and funny as well because it's an old Resident Evil game. Of course, it's going to be funny.
I think all Resident Evil games are written like that. I don't think it's like an old or new thing. Pretty much all Resident Evil games are written almost comedically in nature. Like the newest Resident Evil was nothing but a comedy. That was like every single avenue you take was just hilarious in its execution.
So Toaster is extremely baffled by what's happening right now in the Resident Evil franchise because of the fact that Resident Evil 2 and 3's remakes were so specifically supposed to be like a recanonization of the original games that makes that tries to like bring it in line with other games in like tone and try to make it feel like a realistic possible like universe, which is an absurd goal for Resident Evil because of how just insane the games are. But then fucking between these games, one of the studios that worked on those games made Resident Evil 8, and 8 is completely baffling all the way through. Like it's unhinged and insane.
It's like a nightmare. Like how do you sit there with a straight face and play 8 and go like, yeah, I have to take this with like the same brevity as I would at like a funeral for a loved one. Nothing about understand. 8 is even like remotely worth taking seriously. Everything is hilarious. It's just like what is happening? You like show up to a town, you're like, oh, I guess it's empty, and then like a comically large amount of werewolves just show up and you're like, what the fuck? Like, okay. And then not only do you like, well, that was weird, but it like never comes up again. Like it never talks about it. It never discusses it. It just like, yeah, that's just a thing, right? That this town just has werewolves. You're like, what?
But I think they really wanted to do Resident Evil 4 in Resident Evil 8. Keith keeps mentioning that when in his Let's Play of Resident Evil 4, and this is the first time I'm also seeing Resident Evil 4 in a long time. So
Resident Evil 4 is also a joke. Like everything about it is funny.
Yeah, but I think Resident Evil 8 was made on purpose like that, like the werewolves being a lot of them, and nobody mentions the fact that there's so many werewolves to the point where the plot has to explain. The plot does end up explaining why there's so many.
I was gonna say it's hard to say that nobody mentions it. It's the thing that's happening the whole game.
Yeah, but it's like characters don't react to it.
No one no one acknowledges that this is a thing that's happening. And like it explains it, like the plot explains why they exist, but no one's like the merchant guy isn't like, man, a lot of wolves out here, huh?
So
no one says anything.
That is especially as a nod to Resident Evil 4 is that granted I haven't finished 4 yet, but I'm pretty far. In both 4 and 8, there just is a merchant that magically is around and unaffected by the events around them and also not acknowledging them.
Yeah. I guess that's well, but no, he is affected by the progress you make in the world. Like he does acknowledge that you've done things. He does
Does he?
he does like yeah, he makes acknowledgements of stuff that you
Oh,
do.
in 8.
Like
In
if
8
you
he does. Yeah.
yeah, in 8.
Before,
Yeah,
I don't
he
think he
especially
does.
like
He
he
does,
especially
that's
makes
cool.
knowledge if you go around and you mess with the little like the ball thing that I don't know what you call I don't know what those games are called where you put the ball in it and you have to like move the thing around to get the ball into a hole. Like each level in Resident Evil 8 had one of those dumb like, oh, here's a ball, put it in, and then you get like an item or whatever. And he makes like he'll acknowledge that you've done that. He like so like the world he's like the world's changing around him and he's aware of the changes, but he just doesn't say anything. Like he's not like, man, crazy. There's like a 12-foot vampire hanging around, huh? You're just like, what, dude? You're literally in this room with her. Like she's outside the door right now. I
That's
have the door
that is one
open.
of the
She's looking
goofiest
in.
elements of the
What the
entirety
fuck?
of Resident Evil 8 is that like it's just a mechanical moment of the fact that like it happened before with Resident Evil 2 with Mr. X. Like he would chase you through the entire police station, but he wouldn't come into any of the safe rooms. You could just hear him like stomping around outside. And like in
Yeah.
Resident Evil 8 there's exactly one safe room in the entire game basically, and it's just at the front of the castle, and it's just like so you'll be one room away from where you're dealing with with vampire lady people, and you'll just like walk in that room and be like, all right, bye, and like they just stop following you and you hang out with this merchant.
Yeah.
You're like, what is this? I don't understand.
I went out of my way.
Though.
I went out of my way a lot in 8 to and I regret not recording it, but I knew that I wasn't gonna like take the game with the level of interaction people would want. But like I could not stop laughing where I like broke the pathing of I forget her name, the white vampire lady. I guess they're all white. The
Dimitrescu?
one wearing white.
Dimitrescu?
Demetresk, yeah. Like I broke her pathing and she got stuck in the safe house door. Like she was stuck just walking into the safe house door. And like I couldn't stop laughing at the idea where I was like, the merchant's just sitting there point blank looking at me. And in between, like, and I'm standing there, behind me is a door that's wide open with her walking into it constantly. And I'm like, how is this not the stupidest fucking scenario? Like we're just gonna all ignore that. One, we're in a castle. Two, how did you get in here? Three, there's a vampire lady here. And four, I can't leave. Like I'm just stuck in this room. Like what? This is all, and that's not. I mean, that's not all intentional. Half of it is. It is comical that I don't know how the merchant got into any building, and because I don't think he can literally move. I don't think it's like actually possible that he can move. He just
He
has
drives.
a cart that he's like.
But-
yeah, but that's what
yeah.
I'm saying. Like he's literally physically tied to a cart. I don't think he can get out of the cart. But the cart just like shows up in places, and you're like, how the fuck did you get in here? What is this cart doing in here? Like, is this a garage? Isn't this inside the castle? How did you park in here? Like, it's just, it's
no, like the merchant aggressively made no sense in 4. Like, there's a part.
Oh yeah.
Like that whole part where you see the merchant outside, and then you storm through like a fucking siege of a castle, and then the moment you're down the other side of it, the merchant's there, and you're like, wait,
what you buying? What you selling? What
like
what is the path you took to get here, sir? Like,
what are your secrets? I need to know.
But like, I don't know. 8
yeah.
also has like the dolls. The entire dollhouse is just a comical experience. You're just running around and just like violently, aggressively attacking a fucking doll. It's so unnecessary.
Is it the clockwork?
I don't know.
You're referring to?
No, I'm talking about 8. Sorry.
8? Yeah. I don't remember.
In 8. In
He's
8,
talking
you
about
go to like
the horror level that the entire internet wouldn't stop talking about.
Yeah, that's the one that like.
The scariest thing that happened all year in video games is the baby.
It's just the hallway.
I also broke
the shortest segment ever. It's 100% of the fact that just like baby looks like that and sounds like that and passes by you like twice in like a semi-scripted stealth section. But at the moment that's over, you're like, this is just a circular hallway. You just go one way towards your objective, and if the baby's there, you go back around, and that's the entire level. And if you're like, oh, it's the scariest thing in gaming, I'm like, play more video games, play more video games, play more video games, guys, please.
Like
it wasn't
I've
bad,
had,
it wasn't
literally,
ineffective, but holy shit.
No, granted, I'm not, that stuff doesn't work. I'm not very good at I don't respond very well to horror that's like comically like grotesque. Like when like the baby thing was just too comical for me to take be scared of.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, oh my god, how does this even fucking work? Its mouth is huge. It's like a slug. Like, how does it even? Why? Like, did you build the house around the baby? Did the baby get put into the house? Did it grow in here?
I mean,
like,
yes,
how
it's
did
a baby.
like, but like, no, but I'm saying like, how, you know, did it just come out looking like that? I don't know anything about this universe, but every time I think about Resident Evil, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna assume that that's just how it's always been. Like, just because otherwise the buildup to it is even more confusing. Like the idea that like, yeah, I just grew a giant head baby and I didn't question that at all. It just,
it's not just a head baby. It has arms.
It's like
I grew a head.
it does
baby.
it though. It's
Yeah,
literally
no,
just
it's
like
got
a head and then like a little worm body, and then it's got like it kind of flops around at you. It's like ah.
But
And
it
you're like,
reminded
what
me
are
of
you doing?
Albino Lullaby, where there was like punching bag face people that would slide after you. They just looked like those big body-sized punching bags, and they had a big face plastered across them, and they would just kind of slide after you.
And it's like
disturbing thing.
Yeah, and like there and again I hate the fact that like in horror games that there's a really important level of like you do not want to be tracked specifically. Like when an enemy is tracking you, or like the thing that's scaring you or following you or whatever is tracking you, and it's out in the visible world, like you can physically see it tracking you, it's best to keep it like really far away. Don't have it like just close enough to you, because again, like the baby, you can just fuck its tracking up. I got the baby stuck inside of the bedroom. It couldn't leave. Like I just went.
How did you fuck up the baby in what's basically a hallway? There's so little happening in that level.
Because if you run from the baby and go back to the bedroom and go under the bed, the baby comes into the room. But if you come out of the room just at the right way, like the baby's turning to go, because so you go under the bed, the baby will turn away and just be like, all right, he's gone, I guess. But if you come out right as the baby turns, it goes like, ah, and then it gets like stuck in between the bed. And so it just can't turn around. It's like, ah, it's just like yelling at you as you're just standing there looking at it. And you're just like, all right, well, fuck you and goodbye, baby. And you just kind of walk off, and it's just sitting there stuck in a bed like, it's like, why would you let me do this? Don't have the baby come so close to me. Just have it away.
How do you not have a career playtesting every video game? I don't understand how you break literally everything.
The thing is like, and so I couldn't do this. Like a good example is I played Visage, and Visage is awful for horror. It's so scary. It upsets me. Like there's moments where I'm just like there's a scene where it's only like, okay, you can't navigate. The only way to navigate is you have to take pictures. You have to like keep flashing a camera. And when you flash the camera, sometimes there's just a scary thing. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm never going to do that. And so like my brain went into like, you know, like 5 forehead level IQ level, and was like, okay, I'm going to memorize the entire house so then I don't have to do that, and then I can't get jump scared. And so I'm like running through and I'm doing all this. I'm like, I got it. I figured it out. And then it was like, oh, you need to open a door. And I was like, oh, I don't know where the handle is. And so I'm like trying to maneuver where it is. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just take a picture of the door because there's nothing bad that can happen from that. And so I take a picture of where the handle is. I go, okay. And so I open the door and I realize, oh, well, I have to get something in this room. I don't know where it is because it's pitch black. So I just take a picture and there's a thing in there. I was like, God fucking damn it. Like, what was I did everything right, but what do? I have to see what I'm trying to pick up. So I'm fucked. I'm just literally fucked. Like
horror games are designed to scare you.
It's the first time I'm hearing of Visage.
Visage, I highly recommend.
I've heard Faith does some fucked up shit.
It's
Faith?
Oh yeah,
the Faith trilogy.
Faith the company?
Faith Trilogy. Yeah. There's a good like Mandy has a huge I guess you could call it just a passion for horror games. So I have to unfortunately keep playing or witnessing a lot of them. And I am not a big horror fan. I do not like horror games. I don't like being scared. I don't like I am very much more like I would rather go like Doom. Doom is the style of horror I like. I like to have a lot of
Doom is
control
not
over the
horror.
environment. It is for the demons when I show up.
It is for
And
the demons.
that's what I like. I like that kind of like power horror, I guess you could call it. Um there's like some games that let you have control in that way, like you have a gun or you have a weapon, a way to like defend yourself from something scary. Like Silent Hill is a good example. Silent Hill is like aggressive horror, I guess, or like a combative horror. Like something shows up, it's like that's scary. I have a gun. It's like what? It's like, but like but it, obviously, you know, like the trick in Silent Hill is that it doesn't matter, right? The gun isn't really going to do much for you. You can't like kill Pyramid Head or whatever. So it's more of just about having a sense of control and being able to like have some kind of way to push back against something coming after you. But then you have like Amnesia style horror where it's like, I'm here, I have a lantern, don't touch me, I'm scared. And like you just kind of walk around and something shows up, you're like, I'm gonna cry now, basically. I have nothing I can do but hide and cry. Please don't come after me. And like that's all the horror is. And those are good. I like those kind. And Visage is more like that. Visage is much more like, I'm gonna walk down this hallway, and you go down the hallway and someone's like, hi, I'm gonna turn around now. And like you just like, I'm not gonna go down that hallway. There's a person at the end of that hallway, and either they're gonna disappear when I get there or they're gonna come after me. And both options are not good for me. So no thank you. And it's just
Well,
like
them disappearing is less not good.
no, because if they
Better.
disappear, it means they went somewhere else. And that means that they might be behind me, which is not ideal. Like it's just Visage is also well, yeah, and just horror like that in general. I really like it's more atmospheric. It's very thick in its atmosphere and making you feel uncomfortable all the time because you don't know what, when, and how something's going to come at you and make your day miserable. And that's what's really good about horror. But stuff like in like Resident Evil, you know, there are times where you can be startled, like you turn a corner and you're like, oh no, that's the big vampire lady. But it's not I don't know, it's not like there's not this like feeling of dread and desperation every time you're walking through hallways. Like in Resident Evil, I wasn't going like, oh man, I don't want to go down that hallway. It might be scary. It's just like, oh, okay, it's fine. And then something comes, it's like, oh, I got to turn around. And you're just kind of like running around or whatever. But like Visage would be literal. Like I would open a door halfway and be like, okay, can I see? Can I like, what's in there? What's in there? Like, is there something in there? Can I like, I'm trying to like hold the door handle to see if I can slam the door really quickly just in case something's in there. Like that's that's good horror that makes you like not want to progress, but you're doing it anyway. But
like Darkwood,
I don't know.
or Dark Woods.
Yeah,
Which one?
Darkwood is a good example.
Did you play it? Oh, it's such a great game.
No, I watched Keith play it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
But
Darkwood is
I
neat.
haven't had a chance. I just again
They
I
make
don't
me panic enough
I
that the
won't
comments
play-
will never stop freaking out that I literally never use any of my abilities because every time something scary starts happening, I don't remember. I immediately forget some kind of weird hold down this button and you can do a thing menu. I'm like, I'm trying to not die.
I wonder if I also didn't play with any abilities because I don't remember any of that either.
When you level up, you can buy abilities, and then I never used a single one.
Yeah,
I think the entire playthrough. There's like a weird. I think there's like a radial menu. You hold a button to bring up or something to use them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm being murdered.
They're handy for maneuvering around in the open world more than necessarily for surviving, like being assaulted by the monsters at night.
I'm always the opposite end where I remember I remember everything I can do, but I can't do it in the moment. So it's just like when I'm scared, I'm like, I gotta light the thing. I can't. And I'm just like fumbling on things. I can't pick things up, and it's like time sensitive. And like we played a horror game that was this. I don't know how he does it, but there's like some Japanese guy who just busts out these like $5 horror games that are like about 2 hours long at most, but they're really good. They're really like thick in atmosphere and make you feel pretty good or pretty scared. But and one of them is like there was like one scene where you're going through this entirely overly thick atmospheric place. It's just tense the whole time. And finally you get to a point where it's like, okay, now there's something coming after you. And you're like, oh fuck. And you start like the goal is like you need to go and set all these clocks to 3 a.m. And you're like, fuck, there are clocks in this house. And so you're like running around trying to find clocks and like setting them while something's just running at you. It's just like constantly following. And you're like, and so I'm just trying to fumble with like, is this a big hand, a small hand? Fuck, I move it to the side, just and then like you can hear the footsteps like go 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 go. And you're like, like that kind of stuff I'm bad at. I'm not really good at using ability. I know what to do, but I'm not good at doing it when I'm scared. Whereas yeah, like so I like games that that require you to do stuff while you're scared because those are always good tests. They're good uh good ways to execute on making you feel both annoyed and scared at the same time. Where you're like, I know I can do this. I'm just an idiot. And and then at the same time, you're like, but God, there's something chasing after me. I don't have time for this shit. Like, get yourself together, me. Like,
I thought that was the fun thing that was happening for a while with Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, but eventually just had to realize I think it's just not working. I think something's just not working at some point. Like it's like for a few minutes it's funny that like, oh no, I'm dropping I'm literally dropping items and weapons that I need, and oh, I can't quite, like, because it's VR, I can't quite get my like attacks to land, and there's like a finesse to it of being able to like correctly like cave in a zombie's head or whatever. But after like 2 hours you're like, okay, what the fuck? Like at some point you're like, there's something that I'm doing wrong, or something's not calibrated right, or this game's not conveying its rules correctly, because like I literally cannot fight anything. And it's like it goes beyond the Resident Evil 1 struggle of like, how do you wow, I'm really surprised by how tough this one zombie is, to like, oh, I literally cannot fight a single zombie in a game where every time you look up a video of this game it's people fighting waves of zombies, and I'm like, that means it's unplayable. Like I somehow managed, I got to essentially experience like an accessibility problem, in that like I just found myself utterly incapable of playing a game and not knowing why, and just being like, I guess I can't play this game, goodbye forever. Which is the thing that happens here and there with all like subjective controls. Like conceptually they're really cool, adding subjectivity and crazy amounts of error to control schemes on via VR or motion controls and so on. It has the possibility of like letting you actually struggle in real life, which is, and like it's really cool in Half-Life Alyx where it's working really well, and you're like just struggling with the reality of how hard it is to actually shoot a head crab in the dark with a gun you have to aim yourself via an iron sight and everything. Like it's the coolest thing in the world.
It is so fucking hard. Especially like in my brain I keep going like, yeah, I can shoot the center of that when it jumps, and then as soon as it jumps at me I'm like, yeah, I made a terrible mistake. Like, yeah, it
jumps and then you jump out of your skin. It's terrifying.
I just do a
really
side
fucked
step
up,
and I end up like yeah. It's great.
It was just the worst. The funniest thing is that I went to Half-Life Alyx because I think Patreon voted for it or something, and like when I went into it I started off being like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like Half-Life but in VR, and I didn't process what that meant for the entire first level. I was just like, oh, cool robots fighting Combine, blah blah blah. And then I got to the second level where you see headcrab zombies dead everywhere, and you're like, oh right, Half-Life 2 is a horror game for like half of its runtime. Like the fucking Ravencraft or whatever the fuck, and
Ravenholm.
Ravenholm and the spider head crab zombies. You're like, oh right, fucking Half-Life 2 was the first video game to give me nightmares as a kid. Like I had the barnacles. I was terrified of the barnacles being a thing that could just happen in real life.
Yeah,
like I hated that entire concept so much. And by as a kid I mean a teenager. I was a teenager when I played that game because it came out in 2004.
They are so fun,
and I probably played it in 2007.
Oh my god,
I
love them in Half-Life Alyx. They're like hilarious. I just like throw shit at them all the time. Like, here's like a giant tub, and they're like, it's too heavy. It's so fun.
Yeah,
that game worked so well in so many ways, and unfortunately, Walking Dead was just impossible to play. Like, it just did not make the same choices that it needed to, or something. I don't know.
Walking Dead wasn't
Half-Life
made by
Alex
the same kind of
is
studio though. It was like it's clearly an indie style
No, I
development,
know it's
right?
not made by the same people.
Yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
know,
Just
but like
I'm
it's
just
not because
comparing. I'm just
Half-Life
comparing the
Alex is
results of playing different VR games with these like what I call subjective controls, because it's this like difference where you have to like make gestures and the game has to interpret what you mean, and you just hope you're on the same page
Mhm.
versus like pressing
Yeah.
X.
Yeah.
And like however it's implemented can literally just make or break whether or not you can play an entire game, up to including with like when I play like Metroid Prime and people are like, oh, well, this game was perfect, it was like I was really there, and I'm like, I literally can't aim. Like, just people have massively different experiences from person to person, and it's just rough because you're essentially playing different games based on how well that control scheme both clicks for you and also just mechanically works for the game itself, like whether or not it's working correctly, or this or that's calibrated
Something
correctly, or if your room's lit correctly, or who knows, are there too many reflective surfaces in your room, like what's causing it.
something that really sort of it was a letdown in your 2 hour first episode of Walking Dead was the fact that the time of day was condensed. Like you don't have infinite time, and when I say infinite time, I mean you have like half an hour to do the whole day run. And I think that for a VR game, that's not necessarily a thing that you want, especially. Well, you might be. Are you able to pause the game just to take a break if you need to? In
I'm sure you
Walk,
can.
yeah, okay, but
yeah.
still, it's like there's so much looking around and enjoying the environment that you can do in a VR game that it's just I don't like condensed time. Make the challenge be something else, not people be fast about doing stuff.
It's an interesting stressor of sorts in a sort of like Dead Rising or Pathologic or like other games, like the like having time and having the world itself be hostile a bit and like affect your decision making is interesting on some level. But in this case, it is like this, like it kind of encourages this like Fallout 4 style, very slow and like investigate the entire environment and look for items and scavenge everywhere, while also having to like figure out what you can carry and gotta like, deal with tactile stuff, and you're carefully
Yeah.
trying to stealth everywhere because every single zombie that comes after you is a problem, and people can just shoot you if they see you.
Mhm.
So like it kind of felt like the timeline was just going too fast. It felt like it made sense that there was a day-night cycle, and that when the sun goes down, it gets into that danger territory where you're just totally fucked at nighttime because of how much stuff can be coming at you at that point, and so you have to retreat. Like, that's an interesting mechanic, but it felt like the days came and went so fast that you could barely get anything done while you're trying to learn the game, which might be
Mhm.
amplified by how I couldn't make any basic actions work the entire playthrough. Uh, but also, like, I quickly got into the problem that happens with a lot of horror games, or games that like want you to feel in danger, but then if you actually do start dying, you start to really face the consequences of death and whether or not they're interesting or whether that the game makes any sense at that point. And like, for a while there, the game felt really baffling because when you would die, you would just respawn and restart the level, but your loot is now just on the floor somewhere and you can just run over and get it again. So it's almost like nothing happened. But then what happened is I eventually hit a point. Well, a few different messes happened. One, I was sent on a quest to go do a thing by the first NPC you meet in the first like real level, but then when I came back, she was gone, and then the next day she was gone still, like as if maybe that was like only the first day quest, but the first day comes and goes so fast that it's like almost uncompletable. But like I just never saw her again, even after I went to do the
Mhm.
thing, and generally didn't even know how to proceed the story necessarily at that point. But what started also happening is that like you would like fail the first day because you can't fight, because in my case I couldn't fight a single enemy effectively seemingly, and nothing was working. And then you come back the next day, and instead of being the same problems, it's all new problems because all of the enemies have now been replaced with an entirely new set of enemies. And in this case, like what it did is a zombie infested level became a human infested level, so there's just like people everywhere with guns that would just kill me. Like if
would shoot
they
you,
saw
yeah.
me at any distance, and they were effective at doing that, and they were filling the whole level, not only the building that I needed to try to investigate, but also the streets outside of it and the alleys and just every place you could go. Like you basically couldn't explore because everywhere you would go would lead to humans attacking you, and nothing I would do would effectively lead to killing a human, except basically just being able to shoot them. And it was also impressively hard to aim a gun in that game because the guns themselves had inertia to them. So every time I would try to aim a gun, my weapon would sway in ways I've never seen, even in VR games or even in like games where it's supposed to be a bit of a struggle to aim. Like when I aim in Resident Evil 4, Leon's gun is going all over the place, and you have to like it's intentionally a struggle to make the stupid little red dot land up with a head. But like these dudes, like throughout the entire game, it was basically impossible to aim a gun. Like I was amazed, and I'm like, you guys don't need to make it this much harder. Like it's already hard to aim a gun in VR. Like I learned that from Half-Life Alyx. You need to also be like, and now the gun's gonna spin in your hand. It's crazy. But what was finally the death knell of this game was the fact that like in like the second level, and like once again I'm comedically struggling against every single zombie, and it's kind of amusing in its own way and kind of entertaining how fucked everything is. But I literally got into an unwinnable state where I couldn't ever proceed because I died in a level where all of my supplies were out where I died, and they made the mistake, and I'll call this out specifically as being in like a straight up like flaw of the game, where other stuff could be up to my fault, is the fact that like when you die, everybody stays where they were and you just respawn at the beginning, but without your stuff. So you have an empty inventory. But that means that any enemies that are near the beginning of the level are still there. And what happens is that every single, the 2 levels that I got to play, you arrive on on a boat at a dock, and then there's an alley that connects to the actual level. And so that's the only way in and out of the level. They didn't do the Overwatch thing where there's at least 2 paths out of the spawn point so that you can like, oh, they're covering this one in traps, so I'll take the other door. So that alleyway is full of zombies that you can't fight because you don't have weapons, and as far as I can tell, you cannot do any kind of hand-to-hand combat whatsoever. You need to have a melee weapon, like a knife at least. But your inventory is completely empty, so you don't have you don't have a single thing, and the game doesn't let you pick up improvised weapons like a brick or a rock or anything off the ground. It has to be just like bespoke weapons for the most part that were placed for you to use. And so like there's a zombie that you can't fight, and they like fucking like practically magnetize you onto you and grab you and will just kill you relatively quickly. And at the moment you take damage, you're moving slow. If you try to run for more than like 3 seconds, you are like and like easy to catch because you're out of stamina and you're moving slow. Like you just straight up cannot juke these zombies like you would in a Resident Evil game. So they just effectively fully block you from playing the game anymore. And every time you respawn and try to get past them again, the zombie that kills you aggroes onto you and therefore gets even deeper into the hallway and closer to the spawn point, and also attracts more zombies that are further filling the only hallway and further blockading you from being able to play the game. And it just becomes like, oh, I get it. This campaign's unwinnable, basically. I basically have to like start over and try to play better, but I didn't learn how to play better over the course of this failed run, so it's just like a fool's errand to play this game anymore. And that was just my like I reorganized my entire room just to play this game in VR, and I ultimately had to give up on the entire thing, and I just put all of my hours of footage into one episode and turn it into a let's try, because I didn't want to like imply it would be a series that would go on, because that would imply that I was going to finish it, and I just gave up. I'm like, sorry. My money is wasted on this game. I spent like, it's probably like a $40 game.
That is ridiculous. I can't believe it would be such a struggle to, especially in a zombie game. Like one of the biggest appeals to zombie worlds, I guess, is the improvisation to make weapons out of anything and fighting zombies with them.
Yeah,
and the idea that you, like that's one of the best things about
that Zombie Island, or whatever it's called, Dead Island, I think, or
Dead Island.
The one with the
Dead Rising also does it too.
Dead Rising,
yeah. Both Dead Island and Dead Rising will let you just like make random shit.
It's just
and it's like weird. even Half-Life Alyx is such a good example too, where you can literally just start throwing kitchen sinks at fucking zombies. Like if there's something around you can grab, just throw it at them, and they'll be stunned. They'll be like, "Whoa, okay, whoa, that's a little. I wasn't ready for that." And it gives you time. It gives you time to like reload because it's a game where it's about quick decisions that keep you alive. You're just sitting there and you're
Mhm.
like, I gotta put the gun in. It's like, oh, I still gotta cock it. You throw a thing at, you go on the ground, you grab a cue ball and you throw it at its face and it goes like, ow, what the fuck? And you just like reload your gun and pop, pop, one. Okay, let's go. Like that's natural. It feels real. It makes you invested into the game. And you would think in a zombie game that would be like your goal is to make you feel like you're invested. Meanwhile, Keith just like straight up shoots an NPC in the head and a new one comes out of the factory line. Like it's just
That
a
was the
typical day
tutorial.
in the
It wasn't canon yet.
that
was
doesn't make it
wild.
better. The fact that in the tutorial you can shoot and kill an NPC and a new one just takes its place is like not a good
It's an
sign.
indicator.
I will not label this as
Yeah.
a flaw. I thought that was fucking hysterical. That was really
It was
funny, that you could shoot the NPC at in the tutorial, and then another guy just walks out and does the tutorial for you afterwards.
I was not
A
ready for
different
that.
person as
It
well.
was really funny.
I like that it was a different person. It wasn't just a copy. It was just somebody
Yeah, it
else.
wasn't even a carbon copy. It's just like some
Yeah.
random, like right off
But
the
with the
bat,
same
another
voice.
one shows up.
Mhm.
No, that was incredible. I
think
was
if they-
super on board with the game for like the first hour, but eventually I was realizing like this is not going to improve. Like I'm not going to become capable of fighting any of these enemies. Like it's just going to continue to be like this is not like the game being quirky and challenging in a weird Resident Evil 1 or pathologic sort of way. It's like, oh, this game's unplayable. Like like some people out there have figured out how to make the game work, but at some point the game's just kind of being a dick. And to some extent, I feel like the way forward with these like subjective controls style games is to try to figure out the technology to essentially like meet the player where they are. Like I'm not saying play the game for them, but like because everyone's idea of how to swing a weapon or how to do something is so variable and it's so hard to convey that to everybody, and like you shouldn't have to take like a martial arts class where the entire player base is in one collective class, all making all of their forms perfectly matched so they can do the gestures correctly. Like
So you think that was what was keeping you from? It's the
I can only assume the game. I mean, because people just play it. You can just look at footage of people like fighting, like there's footage everywhere of like you see somebody like go to open a door and then the door fucking explodes. Like, oh fuck, the zombies beat it down. Like 6 zombies are coming at you and you're like, oh fuck, shoot that guy, shoot that guy. Oh fuck, I'm out of ammo. Pull my knife off my belt, stab that guy in the head, and like there's like they're having the intended experience of having a scrappy, improvised, messy fight against all the things coming at them where it goes so bad if they fuck it up. And that's the point of the game, is to have moments like that where you're like struggling and improvising. But that doesn't work if every single attack I do just literally doesn't work. Like I'm just doing it wrong somehow, but I tried to do it for literally hours and it never worked. Like at some point the game just needs to like meet me halfway, because like at some point it's literally easier to fight a real zombie than to play the video game of trying to pretend to fight a zombie, which is like a jokey thing people say about like it's easier to play through the fire and flames on a real guitar than in Guitar Hero or whatever with the insane button mapping and whatever the fuck.
Which is
but like,
true. Which is true. I can
but
test
like
it.
in this case, you're not even pressing 5 frets in a strum bar. You're shaking a weird wand controller in your hand in this overhead motion, and like I tried so hard to play that game that I was in pain for the next 4 days. Like I had so much muscle soreness and like I had like strained things, and like because you just keep trying again. You're like, do I need to swing faster, slower, like wider, like a big, stronger sweep? Like what am I doing wrong in my swing? And the game does not in any way coach you on your swings to let you know where you're going wrong, and nor does it like have any kind of like adaptive difficulty that tries to like interpret your gestures and learn from them and then be like, okay, that's what he thinks an overhead swing is. Like whether I'm doing it wrong, or my room is doing it wrong, or the technology is doing it wrong, or the software is interacting with my version of VR wrong. Like you don't know what's wrong. It's so frustrating to just be stuck and the game not even try to help you.
Does the game have an overhead swing?
Yeah, you're using axes.
Yeah, but the overhead swing is not a real move. It's not like that's not realistic.
They give you a two-hand. That's the go-to thing in Walking Dead is you'd get like a fireman's axe or whatever, wood cutting axe, and you swing it overhead to like cleave the zombie's head in half.
Yeah, but that
And
works in cinema. It doesn't work in real life
this is like cinema.
Well, this is cinema. Yeah, this is interactive cinema.
No, but the video game.
Because boy, did I try swinging the axe from side to side. That definitely doesn't work. Though. You absolutely have to hit them on the cranium in order to do anything. But that would also basically never work. But I definitely never got like a decapitation or a side of the head thing. You'd think any solid swing at the head would more or less work, but nothing seemed to work.
Me just looked like the zombies had too much health. But I think
no, because that was what you were mostly seeing was attacks not landing.
Yeah, that's so bad.
I wasn't hurting. I just wasn't hurting any of the zombies.
The weapon was hitting the zombies. It just wasn't registering as an attack, which is
it's just bad hit detection, which is fine. I mean, it's
no, it was hitting the zombies. The weapon would bounce off of the zombies.
It's not. It just wasn't. I don't think it counts as bad hit detection. Because it was clearly hitting the enemies and bouncing off of them, like it was hitting them correctly. It's more like I've sent you guys the clip of like the moment that I'll probably upload this as a highlight later or something. Just my desperation of how I couldn't accomplish a single fucking thing in this game. I uploaded this just to show Toaster out of indignance during the day that I fucking was doing this game. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. At some point, I was just so like I just couldn't accept it, and the most, to my credit, the clip I'm talking about where I'm completely helpless against a horde of zombies in the first level happens like an hour in, and I played for like 2.5 hours. I gave it so much of a shot. I just kept going.
Yes.
But no, it's like it's absolutely not the hitboxes of the enemies. It's however they interpret the swing. That's why I call it subjective controls and stuff. It's just like you hold a weird VR object that's not real, and you hold it with your two wand hand devices, and two devices are shooting lasers around your room and detecting your gestures. And somewhere in this process, it's all supposed to collectively come together into like simulating an axe swing somehow, which is this axe that doesn't exist against a zombie that doesn't exist in a room that doesn't exist. And like, if it doesn't come together, you're just so fucked. You're just so completely fucked, because there's all these moments where I swing down on people and it doesn't, like, there's some kind of background, like,
no, that is just bad hit detection. It's not registering that you're hitting them in the head. Like, it registers you hit them, but
well, like, I think it knows where I'm swinging it. I think it does. That's what I'm trying to say is I think there's some kind of background power meter, like, it's measuring how, like, whether or not the
charge it.
Well, like I'm trying to. It's the difference between moving and attacking. You know, like you pick up a thing and you move it around versus you swing it as an attack. It's like Wrecking Ball in Overwatch. You can move around, and then there's the fireball mode where this is an attack now. Like every time you move an object, it has to decide whether you're just moving something or if you're doing an attack. And so like it just. Whatever I'm doing, even though I tried for hours, it just, these attacks were not attacks. Like when I would swing a weapon to attack with it, it would just never register it as me doing an attack with the weapon. And I was like hurting myself trying to play the game.
Yeah, it just also seems like it's struggling to register your movements. Like your character's constantly unable to just hold on to its weapon. Like why is this happening? Why?
It's
like what is this? Like as I'm watching this, but like you're swinging, you're like literally swinging at them. You're like swinging at them, and the game just like moves them to the side as if they're like, oh no, like no, you push them, right? And it's like,
that's
no,
why I was saying,
what do you mean you push them? Even if you, but that's the thing is like even if they had health, they should still be like staggered or hurt in any way, like. I don't know. Okay, so say you didn't hit him in the head. It doesn't kill him instantly, but you swung a fucking axe at him. Like, can you show damage? Can you, like, maybe make their arm not, like, fall off or something? It's just, like, the fact that there's no visual except for, like, you somehow push them like you hit them with an inflatable hammer. Like, you're just, like, boop, out of the way, boop, out of the way. And they just like literally just straight up slide as if their feet are on butter, just like "Wah," to the left.
It
You're
do.
like,
It's weird.
what is this? Like, how do you, how would that be rewarding for a player at all? Even if you were like pushing them out of the way in theory, it still like looks so dumb.
No, I
to-
think
to do-
I
like,
think
I
I'm
don't- I
right
don't
that
know.
it's just straight up not correctly diagnosing my gestures as attacks.
Yeah.
And so like
How?
that's what's
How-
going wrong.
How does
I
any
don't
movement
know.
not count as attack? That's so weird, though.
This
Like,
is
why would
the-
you do that?
This is the problem we've been facing since like when I played Metroid Prime or on Wii or any other like game with motion controls. It's like you in the game can just disagree on what you're doing and not know how to resolve that problem because it's not a person and you can't talk to it.
But like Half-Life Alyx doesn't have this issue.
Exactly.
Like, it just-
that was my example. It's like that's
But I'm saying,
It's
like,
just a
how,
game
how
that's
does
just
it not
so-
have this issue? Just it's not revolutionary. It's not doing anything unique. It just assumes that every action you're doing is an attack action, which is a good
I think
option
re-
because it.
I think it by definition is relatively revolutionary because it is figuring
Yeah,
out how
is
to
it?
make an entire platform work that has almost no
I-
content, and of the content that does exist, a lot of it doesn't work really.
The only time that I'm doing stuff in a VR game is either to interact with an object that you want me to, or trying to kill something. There's not any in between. I'm not trying to like grasp a zombie to shake it back to life. I'm not going to like
Caress.
tickle it. I'm not going to maybe like push it out of the way gently and be like, no, 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 I don't want to hurt you. Like, I'm not going to do literally anything else with a zombie but kill it. That's the only thing you would do. It doesn't matter if it's a stick, an axe, a gun, a car, a child I found on the street. I'm going to use it as a weapon to harm the zombie. Like, there would be no interaction in which you would be dealing with a zombie where you would want it to just move out of the way gently, but not hurt it. Like, why would you do that? Why would you ever do that? What would compel someone to say, like, yeah, it makes sense. You would want to take an axe and just kind of gently move them, right? Like, kind of just bat them out of the way.
Bat them out of the way, yeah.
No, I want to kill a zombie every time. Hit from the top, the left,
The
the
thing
right,
is-
the bottom, up, down. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm attacking a zombie. Like, I don't. How?
In real life,
I don't know. Again, like,
in real life, an axe is actually a really complicated weapon to use because edge alignment is a problem due to how heavy the head of the axe
I think
is.
you could kill
So if
somebody
they-
with just hitting them sideways. Like, if you just smacked someone from the
yeah, you
side
could
with an
hurt
axe, you could
people.
probably kill them.
So, but the thing is, like, that's just one of the problems of using an axe for combat. But if they are trying somehow to simulate that in the game and punish you for not doing it right, they should like give you an option to disable that simulation. If they, for example, they should just have an option be like weapons are lightsabers. So as soon as you touch a zombie with a weapon, you should kill it.
Yes.
So
I
at
think
least
that's
some
how
people-
I think that's essentially how Superhot works, is that you just magically kill everything with like the
Yes.
tiniest gestures, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
And Superhot is a lot of fun to play, and anytime you die, it feels like it's your fault. Like, it doesn't feel unfair. You go like, oh shit, that was my bad. But like, everything's a weapon. You can just throw a gun, a cue ball, a literally a bullet, probably, if you could catch it. Like, you could do any object can just kill another person. And that makes sense. That's the point. That's what I'm doing here. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I can understand having these kind of issues in a game where that's not the goal. The goal is to not be aggressive or active, or there's a lot of elements in play, right? There's social aspects, there's combat aspects, there's puzzles aspects. Like, if you have too many things, I can understand how you'd be like, oh, whoops, like, sometimes you can use an axe to open a door, and we thought that the zombie was a door. But I don't know, man. It's still
looks like it 'cause
I
they
still
step
don't
out of the way.
understand how. Yeah, I still don't understand how in a game that's going to be primarily combat oriented, you would not have every weapon do damage regardless of the way you use it. Like, it doesn't matter if you shoot a zombie in the chest, it should still like stagger them, send them backwards a bit, maybe make them go like, like, I don't know, like, you shot a zombie and it just kept walking at you as if like nothing had happened. And it's like, I don't really think
No,
that like
I think
there would
the
still be momentum in a zombie.
in
Like,
the
a
video
zombie
that
would
you-
feel the momentum of a bullet hitting them. Like, they're not just going to keep walking at you. I don't know. It's just,
in the video that
again,
Keith, showed here, it seems like he missed. And that's the other thing. That's another thing with pistols and firearms in general.
I couldn't tell. because he just like the gun wasn't in his hand, it was like
flickering.
floating around.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I guess this is aiming, but like I will say that Half-Life Alyx definitely had a really revolutionary aiming system. That shotgun aiming system is beyond top tier. I've never seen a better way to aim a shotgun with like a laser sight than Half-Life Alyx. Like the little circle it gives you to say like, yeah, this is the radius of your spread. Oh fuck! Wow, I can't believe no one thought of this for like 100 years. How did you? This is amazing. I love this. I can just hold this in a hand and go like, that looks good, and shoot it. I don't need to do weird shit where I'm like crouched, holding it up to my shoulder, aiming tightly, and then shooting once. I don't need to do that. I could just aim and in the circle and then shoot them. That's fine. It doesn't break up the flow of the combat. It makes you can still be interactive. You can still be overrun. It's not overpowering. It's a good system. But I don't expect every game to do that. That's the Valve touch. But I am shocked to hear that a simple zombie game can't register what a weapon is, and that a weapon does only damage from a specific way. Like I don't know. It's like that Kung Fu game on the Kinect that we played, where like you have to move in this particular action to do a chop. Like that game was awful. That was literally like I would.
That was the game that you hurt yourself playing.
Yeah, if that game was on the VR, I would never play. I would literally like make a campaign to actively get that game banned. Like that was so much effort to just do like to fight someone on the Kinect. You had to like stand it a certain way sideways and then like punch furiously in the air for like minutes at a time just to like do damage to something. And then there would be like boss fights where you're like, holy fuck. You're like halfway
you had to
through
like
a fight,
raise
like,
both
okay, I gotta...
arms and a leg to do like a backflip in order to do all of the platforming, because it's a Kinect. You're just standing in the middle of nowhere, and it has the most awkward setup where you have to face to the side because it's a side scroller.
Yeah.
So you're controlling your side scroller character by punching around,
but also
you have to look at the screen
because that's how the Kinect works. Because they can't.
But like you're facing to the side to just. Well, you can punch towards the Kinect just fine. It's
you can punch towards the Kinect.
The Kinect knew depth. It was fine. It was the fact that you were playing. It's the fact that you're playing a side scroller, so you had to awkwardly face to the side you wanted to punch and kick in, but you still had to turn your neck towards the TV, so you were always looking perpendicular to the direction you were doing all these things in. It was like just daring you to pull muscles and fuck yourself up.
Yeah, Kung Fu High Impact. That's the name of the game.
That is an ancient video. Holy fuck!
Is it? That was from 2011.
2011.
Yeah,
it's a high impact on your.
Wait, the games from you're saying the games from 2011 or our video?
Our video's from 2011. Whoa. I don't know where the game came out. Let me. Kung Fu.
That's like one of the first. That's one of the first ones. That's the year we started, and we started when like Skyrim and Dark Souls came out.
Honestly, we were pretty on top of this. We made the videos in December. It came out in November of 2011. So we pretty much were on the cutting edge of this video.
I forgot Kung Fu High Impact was the first months of us doing this.
It's fucking insane. And what a game to choose. I literally was like crippled by this game. It was so painful.
I bet it has like all nice wholesome things.
It's got little baby Andrew in it, and we're probably really annoying, and everything we say is dumb.
Oh yeah,
and probably
the
problematic.
Audio's awful. I bet.
We were not equipped to record anything, let alone a Kinect game where you stand up in the middle of a room away from the audio things.
But you see people flailing.
You named your character butt sex rules. so that was 22-year-old Andrew's sense of humor.
It's still pretty good though. It made me laugh now as a 32-year-old. Good job. Oh god, the audio's so awful. Oh no, why are you so far away? You sound like you're fucking talking in a can. What happened?
Of course you do. That's the room reverb.
Yeah. We probably had like one microphone total and no idea what it was going to sound like or how it would work. Remember when we played Xbox Live indie games and it was like you, me, Kel, and Joe all sitting on the floor of your garage around one microphone?
Yeah, I've seen some of those.
We played like the Elemental combining game or whatever that had shitty Microsoft Paint art, and like fucking Joe was like, "I hope this developer didn't make Rent or something." It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, those indie games were like they were wild. That was a little bit better though. We did have I think like a mic stand for that. So we did have a way
Wow.
to properly hold up the
The
microphone
second
while
worst
we
way of holding up a mic stand.
well, it's like trust me, it was better than the alternative, which was we were using and when we first started this, I had got a mixer from Radio Shack and then used the left and right inputs into a 3.5 millimeter into my mic input, and then I
Mhm.
had a dynamic mic plugged into that, and that was just like what me and Keith both used, and then we put that in front of each other, and then talked into that, and like it was I think it was mono, so, some of our old videos were just only come out of one headphone, and it was just
Which
it
is
was
not a
awful.
recording
It was like
problem. That's an editing problem.
well, yeah, but it was just like but it still was like it was a really janky setup. There was a lot of, like you could the noise on that microphone was awful. It was like it just picked up literally every
Yeah,
single
because it's
thing.
a 3.5
Um,
unbalanced connection.
yeah, it's
We
just
had
it
a lot
was
of old
bad,
videos where our
and
left and right ears were the two of us individually.
Oof,
yeah, and there's
that is annoying
it
as
was just
hell.
it was a fun
Even
time.
a
There was a lot
slight
of
even a slight pan is annoying to me a little, let
it's
alone
impressive to think
full
about the
independence.
like start if you start out now, you probably have a lot better chance of making moderately okay quality videos compared to the shit that we made. Like
Mhm.
our
Oh yeah.
videos were at like absolute quality dog shit because there just wasn't really anything around for that. So there wasn't like any kind of good guides or tutorials or even software to make this easy. Like OBS didn't exist yet. We just had to record this
Use Bandicamp
like
or something.
yeah,
Trap.
I think we had like some kind of capture card, and then we just captured the audio through Audacity, and then the the video through a capture card software, and then just synced it up later by like up down down on the menu or whatever. It was like the
Yeah.
worst. It's I don't know it. Anyways, this audio sounds like shit. 9,000 people have watched these videos. I'm fucking so sorry. Please don't stop doing that. And
They might have
this
not
looks
watched it. They
like
might have opened it and then closed it.
I hope so. And they like this is awful. Like looking at these pictures of myself, what was I thinking? Like why did I look like this? I should have
I went outside like
how come
this.
no
People
one
saw me.
how come no one yeah, like how come no one told me I looked awful?
When I
And
was
it's
22, I
just
looked even worse than I do now. So I can understand the feeling.
Well, he likes
I
you
had
when
a
you're 23.
it's
I
just
had
such a
a
weird what a
I had
weird
like a
game.
homemade mullet. It wasn't really
What?
a mullet.
Wait, aren't all mullets homemade?
Oh,
How do you
is that how
not have
mullets
a
are? Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was like you went to the barber to get a mullet.
No, no, you just don't go to the barber and cut your hair
Oh, there it
like
is. Okay, I
normal.
had
Well,
a
I
mullet.
guess so it depends. There's a southern mullet, which is you have to go to the barber, have the top of your hair cut short, and then leave it long in the back. And then you could have
Oh my
like
god.
I guess you could call it a natural mullet, which is just you let your hair grow really long and it can
Mhm.
be long on the top if you want it to be, but it doesn't really matter. No one's gonna police you about it.
Oh,
Most
that's
people
not a
have
mullet, sir. That is a
it
trilby.
is it's I don't know. Men
Don't
with
worry.
long hair technically have mullets unless like
I don't
they
think
get
long
it
hair
cut
is
short.
automatically a mullet.
For men, it is. If
I
if a
think you need
man
to
has
I
long
think you
hair,
need
it's a
to
mullet.
cut it short on top in order to win the Mullitzer prize.
No, it's a different type of mullet. It's a specific mullet. That's
Sound off in the
what's it
comments with your
called?
hair opinions.
And I'm sorry if
Do
you
it,
have a
do it. I
mullet.
dare you.
I don't like your hairstyle.
Well, that's
I had
I
I
hate
that's
had
not
you
it.
like
specifically, says the Whisper Man.
I'm not
it's not a
whispering
it's
too
not a
much.
hot take.
It
Mullets
it
never
is
have
not.
been and
It's
never
true.
will be in style. They're always awful looking. Yeah, no, there's long hair mullet. Or no, sorry, there's mullets are long hair. There's a long top hair and long back hair mullets. That's
So
possible. Um,
it's the
It's
like
not like
MacGyver
it's not equal
mullet
though. It's
versus.
always way longer in the back than it is up top. I'm looking at like a whole image
oh yeah,
gallery of
absolutely.
mullets, and it's like it's always
It's
way longer in the back.
Yeah, it's the
yeah.
difference between
It's
the
just
MacGyver
a
mullet and the that guy from Porky's, I think.
Yeah, mullet is like the
I would
technical
say
guy.
I would say, yeah. So there's different. So the Tiger King guy's mullet is more of like a southern mullet, and then you have like that guy from Stranger Things. I don't know, the one that people like a lot. That guy had a mullet too.
MacGyver has a
But that's a
mullet, right?
more
Or am I wrong?
probably that was the
Let me
80s.
look it
Everyone
up.
had a mullet in the 80s.
Oh, that's fair.
But yeah, the older guy in I don't know, the teenage kid in Stranger Things, he had a mullet, and but he has like longer on the top and it's like longer in the
The
back,
guy that's
and
in
so it's not like
Dead by Daylight, Steve.
yeah, Steve guy, yeah, he has a mullet. That also counts. It's just like there's just two different there's the two different types that I know of. There's like either the flat top base, like short hair, short on top,
Googling
long on
Stranger
back,
Things mullet.
or Stranger Things mullet.
Yeah.
That's like an episode where everybody turns into a mullet.
Generally the results aren't Steve. They're the lifeguard villain.
Stranger Things mullet guy is
All the image
Oh.
results are of the lifeguard villain saying he has a mullet.
Oh, I think here. I can send it in Discord. This guy. Oh my god! Why did you post that picture? This guy is that guy. Is that the lifeguard guy? I thought that was Steve.
No,
I thought that was the. Who's
He
that?
does not seem
that's
very
Steve.
pleased.
You
with this.
posted Steve.
Yeah, that guy has a mullet. So that's a mullet.
Mullet
He's
wars.
he's got a mullet.
Any
anyways, the point
bystanders that in their server
who the hell's that
look at this
guy?
chat don't know. That's the lifeguard villain.
It's not a mullet. That's not a mullet,
don't
though.
remember.
That's just
I don't
long
remember
hair.
this guy.
That's the brother of what's her name, the redheaded girl. That's in the main cast.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Her older brother
I don't
was that
remember him,
piece of
that's
shit,
fine.
and then it's like the season 3 villain kind of. You know, as much as
Anyway,
the
he
humans
does
can be
have
a
a mullet
villain
too.
when it's of course the nightmare monsters.
Well, as long as they can grow a mustache, they can be a villain. If they can't grow a mustache, they can't be a villain.
Well, he was like
That's
an
not true. They just have
avatar
to
of
eat
the
it.
bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the humans are always
interesting.
like a proxy for the bad thing, for the upside down world villain.
Or they made
They're
it
just
happen.
like, I'm the bad guy in the real world, and then there's a bad guy in the bad world, and you're like, oh no, we gotta fight a fight on two fronts. And then it's like
I found the ultimate mullet though.
the ultimate mullet.
Yeah, it's the guy with the teeth implants. It's that kid during prom or whatever the fuck party, like school
That's not a
celebration.
mullet.
It's like
That's a pompadour.
No, he has
it's
a pompadour and a mullet. I don't
It's
know though. I
probably-
think mullets are supposed to touch your shoulder.
I don't know.
I think that's technically
Send
the
your hair
rule.
opinion. I meant to head
he's-
this off by saying that, and then I kept talking about it. Send your hair opinions in
It's
the
fine.
comments. Moving on from thing where we're image searching stuff you can't see.
In a podcast. We're very good.
I'm not gonna try to fix this later.
Imagine yourself to be wearing all these hairstyles and then look yourself in the mirror. You're not going to see the hairstyles, but you can imagine the. I don't know why I said it like this. Just look it up online. It's probably the best way to do it. Do
What
the
the-
image search.
What the fuck am I doing?
What am I saying? What I didn't drink.
What
too
have I
much.
done?
That's not a question I ask.
I know exactly what I've done. I'll never apologize.
I never. Yeah.
Oh no. I mean that is the correct option always. Make mistakes, never apologize. You'll always come out on top from that. There is a what was it? Now I just forgot because my mind is like consumed by mullets now.
Proud of
The
you.
last thing we were talking about was the zombies and survival and VR. So challenge for the YouTube automated chapter finding.
That was the beginning of the entire podcast. This is a good example of what I talked about before the podcast, just mentioning like, why even have a plan? The moment we start, it just goes. Like I offhandedly introduced Resident Evil Outbreak, and then just a series of discussions about survival horror got us through a fucking hour and 40 minutes until we dead ended on Mullet somehow.
And we haven't even talked about the thing that I saw when I looked it up. When I looked up what has happened in the last 2 weeks.
you wanted to bring up Elon Musk's Twitter.
Oh no, you brought it up. I
Oh.
didn't
Yeah,
really want to
congratulations.
bring it
Now
up.
the words are out there. I said them. He's gonna come out of the mirror now.
Oh no,
I've
I
summoned
can't bring it
him.
up
I
though
think
because I famously don't use Twitter. Like I
Famously.
I
am
think
well known.
technically,
I've made not using
yeah, I think
Twitter my whole
technically
personality.
Yeah.
not me. I couldn't. The
Well, I hope you
I'm
can
really
continue
sad
to
about
use
it
it.
because everyone's talking about a
Yeah,
mass exodus and like the platform's going to be dead or something, and I'm like, uh, there's a
it's
lot
bad
of
times.
furry artists and community members that are just really stressed out right now.
Of
That
course, yeah.
not only do there just like a lot of people who make a living off of Twitter, like that's just where they have their algorithmic reach to get to anybody, like in the way that like YouTube serves your YouTube content to people, like Twitter serves art to people, and in many cases it's the only place that you can have this kind of reach where they can consistently fill up commission slots or recruit for their Patreon and so on. And if they go to like back to like Fur Affinity or other like image board based websites, like there's no more of that reach. You just have to hope people find you organically somehow from word of mouth, essentially, like people sharing your art on Discord, I guess, if Twitter's gone, in order to be able to grow. Because if you have a Patreon or whatever, or any kind of following, you have to constantly be growing and gaining new people forever, because you are also always losing people. Like that's how YouTube works, that's how Patreon works, that's just how it is to
Yeah.
have a platform. You always have to be finding new people somehow, or you're just going to gradually lose people until it's not sustainable anymore. That's just the scary, stressful background detail. And it's like there's a bunch of artists that are now like, do I have to change careers next year because Elon Musk just made a stupid joke and then made just a series of stupid decisions recklessly because he doesn't care about consequences, and none of this will actually affect him in the long run, but it can like ruin thousands of people's lives on a whim. So that's the fun thing. And then there's also just like this background stress. Like I've had people DMing me asking me about the furry community before Twitter, because I was in like the internet 1.0 version or 2.0, or yeah, I guess we're in 2.0 now, right? So I was in the 1.0
well, we're
fucking
still, yeah.
BBS
3.0 is a different
bullshit
thing.
version of old internet.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
when Fur Affinity was the best you had, and people like you had just image boards and things and forums. Remember forums? So like people have asked about what it was like before Twitter, because so many of the people that I know now essentially discovered furries through Twitter, and all of their friends are on Twitter, and like that version of the community exists entirely on that site, in that specific form of interaction and responses and circles and so on, and lists, and like they're like trying to even conceptualize what this thing that's important to them looks like after Elon potentially burns it all down. It's like, cool,
Well, the problem is,
great, buddy, thanks for this fucking problem for no reason.
because it's an attack on two fronts. It's the change of the platform that so far has, I mean, not really materialized the change to the platform, but with things like changes to moderation and algorithmic drive and the whole mess with the Twitter Blue and all that. But those are minor changes, all things considered. People can still use Twitter as they did for the most part, unless you're like a big name, or maybe
It definitely can
somebody
create
who's
problems if
targeted.
he was going towards what he was suggesting, which was that people that
Yeah.
buy Twitter Blue would specifically be given like massive algorithmic
Yes.
advantage, to the point where he was basically talking about the website in terms where Twitter Blue would be like mandatory in order to use it, really. Otherwise, you're basically silenced. Like that's very bad if you're trying to maintain margins and actually make a profit on
And
this
also really
website.
stupid, because it's nickel and diming the users. Like, people use Twitter to shit on big people, like in politicians and football players and
Yeah,
singers.
the whole
and
power
whatnot.
of Twitter was the fact that some random person could just cover like the protests in Egypt and so on, and like it would just be out there and could have this reach because it was important to people, and not because they were Donald Trump and owned
Yeah.
the right to be heard.
Getting
and
$8 a month from Donald Trump is the new business model, and that's just stupid.
Elon Musk's either an idiot or a liar or a hypocrite or all of the above at once and so on, because like everything he says makes zero sense. And he talked about like this idea that it was like he talked about this absurd idea that it's the tax on the elites and it was gonna like create better free speech for everyone or something. And I'm like,
$8 a month?
Yeah, like two things are happening here. One, they kept regular verification anyway in addition to Twitter Blue, so those people weren't even losing their check marks so far. But also the rich people don't, like, $8 is nothing to them. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes. So tax on the poor.
Yeah, at any amount of any price that is a fixed value is disproportionately a larger price for poor people than it is for rich people. That's always been true. And like it's so blatantly true that anybody who denies it is just like really shamelessly just like gargling his nuts. Like they're just the most cringiest fanboy of a man who doesn't know they exist and would walk over them if he needed to. Like he doesn't give a single fuck about you, and it's really embarrassing how fucking cringe you are.
It is, yeah.
That's the situation.
But
the fucking fanboys that swarm people that question the most obvious elements of this.
On top of the systemic changes to Twitter that he's promising and that have already been made, there's the bankruptcy. There's bankruptcy because Twitter incurred $12.7 billion dollars of debt when he purchased the company. So, and that debt is now at high tax. What's the word? Like, basically, the banks are charging interest on that, and the interests are not very good because of everything, inflations and the measures to inflation. So he has to pay like $1 billion a year on interest alone. So not only does he have to recoup that 12.7 billion the debt to get rid of that 1 billion a year that he's losing, Twitter's on its best year has made $1 billion in revenue. But generally it's like 200-300 million. So you can see how just everything is wrong with the deal. So it is possible, and like when there's news about him just telling his employees that it's like, yeah, bankruptcy is not out of the cards. But the problem is, if that does happen, what's going to happen to the platform? You know what I mean?
It doesn't seem like there's really any positive outcome here. I think once the deal went through, you were kind of already in a bad situation. Either the platform gets run basically into the ground. Like the platform's never going to be run the way it's been run the entire time. Like he's not going to keep it. He's not going to keep Twitter running how it has always been running. He's going to have to change it in some way because that's just the nightmare human he is. And so no matter what change you make to Twitter, it's going to be a cataclysmic one because it is often a site that kind of just like keeps itself running with very minimal changes to it. All the changes you usually see are stuff like now pictures are bigger, or like you can like alter your timeline to view it by most recent or by newest. Like things are very, like, most of the changes in Twitter are like mundane, small, microscopic changes, where stuff like Twitter Blue is a huge change to make to a site that doesn't necessarily adapt well to huge changes. And
I think we should do
yeah.
Sorry,
I don't know. I don't think there's ever like, I don't think there's going to be a world where Twitter works the way people have always wanted it to work anymore, now that you have Musk running it. And even if it goes bankrupt, Twitter doesn't die. It just means he can get a lot of like financial leeway from it. It's like, that's the thing though, is like, even I don't know, Twitter's one of those things of like, if it shuts down, it is terrible for everyone except for the person who bought it. Like he's not going to get in trouble for it. He's not going to suffer for this. And so it is just like the moment the sale went through, it was already over, right? There was no turning back, and the outcome was always going to be clear, which is Twitter's not going to be a good place anymore. And whether or not
that's clear though.
Is it like he's not going to sell it to anybody else? I would imagine the man would
if
probably
it goes
rather shut it
into
down.
bankruptcy, why wouldn't he? Somebody comes in and says, okay, I'll give you $1 million.
Would
Like
you buy
even
Twitter for $1
$1.
million? Would
I
you
wouldn't because
legitimately
there's so
buy?
much debt.
Would in who the fuck
No,
would buy
'cause
Twitter? That's what I'm saying. Is like who would
even
want
for
to buy this?
$0, I wouldn't.
This platform
But
is
I
literally
think
toxic radiation. Like you're not going to
but I
show up
think
and
like
buy toxic waste.
a company like Facebook or whatever they're called this week, or Google might, or Amazon might be interested in buying Twitter for
Would
$0.
they? I don't think
Like
Google
it's
wants anything to do with social media. They have YouTube and they're pretty fine with that. That's good enough for them. They already incur enough debt as it is from their shit that they bought. And Facebook, I don't know if Facebook will even be. I think Facebook might die before Twitter dies at the point they've been going. So like it literally
Facebook
is
dying is
like
another nightmare as well. Not that I use
yeah,
Facebook,
and
but it's the
so
same issue. It's the same issue
but
as
that
Twitter.
yeah, and that's the thing is like so you just have the like social media at its core is kind of I don't know it's it's kind of where it's as far as it can go really. If you want Twitter, if you want social media to do more than it already does now, it's probably going to be a not great time. It I don't know. It just all these sites rely so heavily on advertisements and they rely so heavily on taking user data in some way. And
Mhm.
as time goes by, people are becoming far less apted to letting that happen. And more importantly, just kind of in general, not being on that kind of platform. A lot like TikTok has its huge fame or huge rise in viewer base because it's just more interactive and interesting to deal with media that way. It's like I want to
You
learn, I
think
want to
so?
like see art. I think
I
for like someone younger, yeah, I could see how it's appealing. I found myself I've definitely found myself at once just like kind of scrolling through and you're like I don't care, oh that's interesting, and you just sit there and you watch it and you're like okay I'm done, and you just go to the next one, and it's a lot easier than a tweet can be sometimes because a tweet is like so take a tweet for example. Here's a picture.
Mhm.
I'm looking at a picture I really like. That's great. I'm gonna click and see what people are saying about it. Okay, so people are posting pictures, replying with other pictures. They're talking in these threads. Sometimes the author's replying to them, sometimes not. There's not really a way to organize by who's replying or whatever. Um, and it's kind of just in general, like, okay, sometimes I could see
That's
other
so much
media
better than
here.
TikTok on all
It's
fronts.
but TikTok's nice because I don't have to look at comments. I can just go to
Doesn't
the next
TikTok
thing.
like
I just
refuse
like
to let
Even
you even choose what you're showing or who you're following? It's just like,
yeah.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
algorithms decided you're watching
Yeah, it
this.
just
It's algorithm, everything.
yeah, it
Yeah,
just
it's the
figures
worst
it out for
the
you.
worst
And
thing. No, it
you
doesn't.
would
It's
think,
terrible.
but
It
you
pushes
would
what
think
it
it's
wants. It doesn't figure it out. It pushes what it knows it's or what thinks anyway, is gonna be more profitable for them. Not what you're gonna wanna watch the most, not what you're gonna be most happy with. It's what is gonna be more profitable for them.
but that's the thing, you keep watching. So obviously it's what you
I mean,
wanted
yeah, but
at the
that's
end of the
I think
day.
that's more out of the sort of I mean, the whole thing, like people have been saying, talking about Twitter and the pull down thing, and sort of um, putting it on the same terms as, for example, the pulling the lever in a slot machine, and the sort of the fact that you're being rewarded for an action is a better thing for the Skinner box than being rewarded for anything. Or I'm not actually sure the terms that people put these in, but Twitter is designed, at least on a surface level, to be addictive to navigate, which is the only. I mean, it makes sense that it would be like that, because it's made to, as with any profit driven platform, it's made to keep people on the platform. So that's the incentive behind it. And TikTok is the same thing, but TikTok is the, like it's flashy. It's meant to be flashy all the time, 100% of the time, and it's short on purpose. It's not meant for you to, okay, let's simmer down and just watch a TikTok video for an hour. It's like it's I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense here. What I'm saying is I hate the idea of TikTok. Not I have never used TikTok for more than
I'm
half an hour for more than 5 minutes.
I don't
Uh,
I
so I
don't
don't
find
hate TikTok.
TikTok to be good either.
Hmm.
I don't it's not I don't think it's a very good system. I don't find much enjoyment. I think there's a lot of problems with gaining especially when it's informational. Having
Mhm.
informational stuff be presented to you in small bite-sized segments less than
Yeah,
like
it's the
5
worst.
minutes. And not really having any kind of system in place to verify this information. Like, you do really just have to go like, okay, this guy just showed me he can hammer a nail into a light socket and it makes his house turn LEDs. Like, okay, well, I probably think that that's not real, but there's not like any system in place to kind of signify, hey, just a heads up, this isn't real. This is fake. This is dumb. Don't
Hmm.
believe this. And a lot of obviously, like, no social media is stuck with like that. I don't think they have to by law show like a disclaimer or stuff. But I think the more that you create this, the more that like TikTok has millions and millions of these like really dumb, probably I guess borderline dangerous informational video stuff, and there is no incentive to make it not exist, but it's also no incentive um clarify or like put a label like Twitter does. Twitter now has like, if you lie or something, you say
It
like, oh
used
yeah,
to.
I think that
No,
all cows
they got
are
all
yellow, and
fired.
it like, well,
It used to
they
do
did
that,
get
but
all
now they got
fired,
all
but
fired. Yeah.
it still does that. It is an automatic system
Oh, really?
that does it. Yeah,
Oh.
it's an automated system, but the problem is that obviously people have to maintain that system. Um,
Hmm.
and so like not, it doesn't matter. The point being is that Twitter has a system in place for this, but it's not perfect either. People can still lie, you can still be deceptive. Um, and I think that's kind of that's like the next thing that needs to be important about social media. It's not about features or functions or uh, the way the content's delivered. It's about like real content. It's like accurate content being delivered. That is the next level to me that I think needs to happen for social media. Is that I don't really care if it's videos or long form tweets or whatever. I don't care if it's just giant pictures of cool guides. I think like the important thing to me is factual information being shared, because I think that's like the number one thing I hate about social media is that it is just a giant cesspool riddled with either really good art that is worth enjoying and looking at, or a bunch of fucking lies. And like, okay, well, that's great. I nothing I love more than looking at a nice, pristine, well drawn picture and then turning to the left and someone telling me that there's like a second coming of a nightmare meteorite or something. I'm like, why, what,
I
what is
think
this?
any
Why are you
platform.
here?
I think any platform, and this touches on a lot of the narrative around the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk. Uh, any platform needs to be heavily. Mm, it's not moderated. Not it's not necessarily the word, but moderated. Yeah, if it is moderated, it is that. It's like editorialized. Though, like even Twitter, in its own way, it's heavily editorialized in the sense that you can't have tweets more longer than 200 and something characters now, but it used to be less. So like that shaping of the platform is required for it to work on at least some regard. Things like MySpace and yeah, MySpace I think is a good example of an or a not editorialized social media that doesn't work. It worked in the sense that it opened the world or the internet, I suppose, to a lot of people, a lot of young people back in the day. MySpace did, and allowed them to have an easy thing or an easy web page, basically for them to have stuff in. But really, the technology was already there for them to do that. There were already bloggers and WordPress and whatever. It's just that MySpace was popular, which is totally fair. But Twitter creates an environment around the constraint of people not being able to say a lot of things in a single tweet. And if they decided that the constraint is that they can't insult people, for example, that would create a different sort of environment. If the constraint were that they couldn't lie, that would create another different sort of environment. And I think there's no shame in making a social network where people just can't lie. Don't lie. That's the rule. That's it. And I'm
I
not talking
it
about
but
uh, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I think it's like it's completely misguided, and uh, I don't know that Elon Musk believes it in his heart of hearts, but I know that some people believe this or believe him in their heart of hearts when he says that if it's not a crime, as long as it's not a crime, it's good to go. Um, which in itself is a problem because like there's stuff that is a crime to say and you should say it, like because
I
crime is different in different countries and even in the country
Yeah.
that we are both. Well, I mean, I'm not in the same country as you guys, but there's stuff here in Portugal that is a crime. I mean, not to say, actually, Portugal doesn't have a whole lot
I
of things to say that is a crime, but like Assange is being prosecuted. Is it Assange? I think it is.
yeah.
Is still being
It's fine now.
prosecuted for espionage charges, based on things that he basically helped millions of people and shaped the 21st century with his um, uh, whistleblowing, basically, of accusing or showing
Yeah.
that the United States is doing, or was at least doing large scale espionage on their own citizens and and citizens of other countries, and like the United States accepts this and they'll think yes, that is what happens, and they're still prosecuting him. So effectively, doing what
Well,
he
he
did
did
is a
commit a crime
crime.
still. Like he still
Yeah, but
did
like,
commit a crime.
but that's what I'm saying. It's a crime, but it's not wrong. So if you
No,
make
yeah, and I think that's the thing is like it, and there you can be like I think I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a place for people to be like jokes or silly, right? Someone can say, "Hey, I think 30 monkeys can probably fit 20 golf balls in their butt." Like you can say that, and I don't need some kind of like weird social media police to show up and be like, "Actually, sir, monkeys can only fit 15 balls in their buttholes. All right, do
I
not lie to
tried.
these people." I don't need that kind of stuff. I just need I think there just becomes this like because Twitter is being used for so many different things, right? It's used
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
for like self publicity, like self uh promotion. It's a place for people to just share their most incredibly boring thoughts. Like I ate pizza today, and it's also the
Nobody
place
does
for like
that.
breaking, and also a
That's the
place for like
meme.
breaking
Nobody
news.
says that.
No, but that's the
Do
thing is
they?
like I'm sure there are old people who do that. I bet you there are old people who
Nah.
go on Twitter and they type like I just pooped out a big log, and then they go and read a tweet from their favorite politician and go like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he said that. I hate you." And then reply to that. And that's like their entire interaction with Twitter. They don't like go around, they don't know like follow any artists, they don't like just subscribe to any Patreons, they don't post any of their own original content that is like creative in any way, or like even like trying to be creative in their tweets or anything. They're just like using it as just a weird way to update your life and then reply to
Mhm.
people rudely on the internet. And like, okay, that's fine. You can do that. But I don't know. It just to me, I think social media is just it's one of those things that I don't think there's any kind of like way you can make social media a positive influence on society. I don't think there's a way you can curtail Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, to be a positive influence on the world. You're not going to be able to curtail it in any kind of way to keep misinformation from spreading insanely through it. And it's not to say that you just give up and let it happen. It's just you need to acknowledge that this is like a really difficult and almost impossible feat to achieve. And like, so then what is the step? Well, maybe not use these platforms for what people use them for. Like maybe not have politicians and stuff on a social media website that has no system for like fact verification. So like
I
people can like I don't
yeah,
know, just it I think it becomes less about trying to trying to make a website do what you want it to do, and more just acknowledging this website isn't built to do what you want it to be.
but
And
I
like
think
that
it could
sucks.
be.
And there's a lot of people here. It could be, but it that has no Twitter has no obligation to be
It
anything
doesn't.
for
Yeah,
you. It has
exactly.
no reason to like facilitate artists. It has no reason to make politicians
Mhm.
feel safe on the platform. It doesn't have any obligation to do anything but basically not be a hotbed for terrorism and like illegal activity, more or less. Like it just has to follow the law or whatever. But there's not like there's no moral obligation for Twitter to do anything,
Yeah,
or any
or
social
legal
media site.
obligation.
The
And
struggle is that there often
yeah,
isn't a single better option. And so if it goes
Yeah,
well,
down for
and
those
that's the
those
thing.
purposes, you're
And
like, well, fuck us, I guess.
and
yeah.
yeah, and you do just have to acknowledge that at some level, just like anything, at some level, if it sucks enough, maybe you just have to make something better. And that sucks, and no one wants to do that. But like, I don't know, DeviantArt exists, and it's not good.
No, it's
But
word.
and
It's
like
bad. They're
Fur
doing
Affinity
AI
exists,
NFT
and
things.
I think Fur Affinity probably also has a lot of things that it could do better. I don't know. I've never used the site, But I'm saying that there
Fur
are
Affinity
ways that
famously
you
hasn't
can.
done anything for like a decade, which at this point is
Yeah.
its best trait because of how much worse every site gets when it changes anything. You're like, Fur
Including the other
Affinity
day.
Okay.
is fucking ancient as far as like it still works like a website from 2005. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And that's
The upload process
on
is
some
so
level.
awkward, and you're like, oh, thank God, thank God. Because yeah, like what Colonel was about to say was like DeviantArt just decided to be like, hey, we're gonna put AI art on our website, and also all of your art you've ever put on DeviantArt is by default opted into being part of the AI sampling. We didn't ask you.
Yeah.
And so like that's
And
it's like
then they
DeviantArt
back-
specifically is
and-
not a good option. A lot of artists that I know just deleted their
Well-
DeviantArts this week, and they're like, well, fuck. Because they're about to lose
Yeah.
their
And
that was
Twitter,
silly
and
of them,
Twitter's
because
a
guess
different
what?
specific
Be-
niche, because Twitter's the only website where you can have any algorithmic reach and you can post adult art. That's like the only one on the entire internet that you can use, and it might be
how
not
silly
that
of
might not
them.
be an option anymore.
Because DeviantArt retracted their statement, made it so all art isn't automatically opted in. You have to opt in the art you want to be part of the algorithm, and problem solved. And it's just
Too late,
like, that's the thing though.
Because
It's too late.
Yeah, but that's
It's
the thing I'm
already-
saying.
you
It's
don't,
like
you don't
you can't.
pre-announce that, because like you can't take back the reaction everyone has with like, oh fuck, because yeah, like you already
Yeah,
made the mistake
but-
of not letting people consent the first time, and everyone's like running from your site. And like Tumblr still doesn't allow any adult content, and like
Correct.
just obliterated its own user base years ago, and it's like everyone's just taking turns just making the worst choices for keeping their user base.
Well, and there does become a level where you are obligated to change things on bigger sites like these, because obviously stagnation becomes your greatest enemy. If Twitter doesn't do anything to change itself, then what is to stop people from just running off and using other platforms that probably can show up and just do these things better than it? And I don't know. It just I hate being like the crazy old man on his internet porch shouting at people, but like on some level, yes, having this huge algorithmic reach on Twitter is nice, but ultimately at the end of the day, it does just unfortunately come down to you being responsible for the platform that you put stuff on. Like, you need to have the control, and you can do stuff like, hey, guess what? Twitter is super bad about letting bots just crawl its site and steal everything from you and use it however they want it to. People have shown this multiple times. Twitter has no interest in stopping it, and as far as I can tell, don't have any like feelings about it either. I think Elon's the only guy who's like, I don't like all these bots around here. But Twitter hasn't ever said anything. They haven't been like, man, those art stealing bots are a problem. Like, that's fine. It's new users, it's more activity. It's
I
all
swear
good looking
bots
for
just
them.
straight up weren't even a part of discourse until it became his excuse for trying to back out of the deal. Like no one has ever. No, it doesn't seem like anyone actually particularly cares.
No one cared about bots, and that is a problem. You should care about bots, because you don't want these weird copyright thieves like running around your only algorithmically viable website to get promotions on, because then they just take the art. And I don't know, Twitter is not a good place for artists. It's not a good place for non-artists. It's not a good place for really anything. But it somehow has become this weird, like, built on a bunch of straws as a foundation, is this is the social media site that most of us use now, is Twitter. And it's not good, it's not well built, and it definitely has all the flaws you would definitely walk away from if you were a new person showing up for any particular reason. But again, we have all just weirdly decided it is the best option. And I don't know, I think there can be value. I personally,
I mean,
think
the
there can be
entire
value
internet just shrank to 5 websites. Like
Yeah.
when we talk about the
And
ancient
that's what I'm
days
saying,
of
is
Fur
like-
Affinity, it was back when the internet was just sprawling and infinite and just endlessly like fractional and segmented, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because like, yeah, there was no like before YouTube, there really weren't like a single website that everybody was using collectively. Like that just wasn't a concept.
Yeah. But
I think-
so I don't find any. I know there's not much stake for myself personally, but I genuinely don't see the hardship in watching these giant five remaining, or these 5 funnels for the internet just burn to the ground. Like, that's fine. Just go back to be free, guys. It was kind of fun. It just, trust me. I was here. I was there for the whole thing. It was really fun to just go around and find
Very
new
bad
places to
news
hang
for
out.
everyone who
And
makes a living on here, though.
Yeah, that's the
it
biggest
is,
problem.
but that's the thing, is like, that's the problem. That is also a problem too. I don't think it's good that you make a living on these platforms, because you're putting way too much financial security on a platform that, again, absolutely fucking doesn't care about you. It will just
No
destroy
job
you if it
really
has the
cares about
opportunity.
you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
especially
and so
in
Like,
these
people
days,
who
it's
work at
probably
Starbucks
safer.
or a bank don't have a more moral job that loves them and wants to tuck them in at night.
Yeah.
but no, absolutely. But
The
but
thing
again,
is,
it's like the internet
but
is unique in itself, because it does give you an opportunity to own your own job site.
but
You can
you're
create
putting,
your own job site and make that a
but that's
place for people to go
Andrew.
to. Like,
But that's
I
what
don't know.
people do on Twitter, though. You own your own job.
Yeah.
Well, you don't work for Twitter. And us
Artists
on
do
YouTube,
their own job,
we
and I do my own job, but they all exist on a
Yeah.
platform somewhere, because you can't
platform is
also
the tool.
create
Yeah.
the internet on top of creating your job. Like, that's an
the
insane
I mean, that's what I
ask.
mean. Is like,
the
it
platform
is
is
an
just a
insane
tool.
ask, but
It's a tool, and as a tool, it should be owned by the people who use it to work. But that's a different conversation to be had. But it's not our boss. Twitter is not the boss of the people who make a living on Twitter. YouTube is not the boss of the people who make their living on YouTube, and
well,
all that.
YouTube is kind of the boss there. YouTube will decide
it's
whether
just
or
a
not you
tool.
continue.
It's-
Yeah, no. YouTube gets to show up and tell you whether or not what you
They
make
can,
is
but that's
acceptable.
because
Like,
but they can because the tool is not owned by the people that use it. It's owned
but
by
YouTube,
by Google.
I don't know.
It's
YouTube doesn't.
owned by different
YouTube,
people.
I don't know. I don't know if YouTube, to me, counts as a tool. I think it's just a
In the sense of
repository. It just
in the sense of
hosts a
how do
bunch
you
of
get your
files,
money at
but
the
it
end of the
doesn't, like,
it's in the
yeah.
sense of how do you get your money at the end of the day, right? So you use Premiere, use OBS, use the game, and use YouTube.
Technically, you get
That's
your
a tool.
money. I mean, you are getting your money from AdSense. You're not getting your money from YouTube. YouTube doesn't
Yeah,
pay you
well,
anything. AdSense
yeah,
gives
that's
you its
true,
money
AdSense.
because
But
people
still,
pay
it's
for
multiple
ads
tools.
to Google. But yeah, and I think that's. But it's like, how do you describe this? Like, I think of it the way, like, Rooster Teeth is a good example, but also a bad example of this, because obviously the reason that their success worked in the way it did was because they did uh they were doing something during an early time before YouTube was as big as it was, and so they had this luxury of saying, hey, I'm creating a website that hosts videos, hosts all of our content on it, and you have to go there to watch it. And so people would then make that the place that they hung out at. It had a forum, it had the content, it had, like, like merch and all that stuff. It was a one-stop
Mhm.
shop to hang out and do stuff in. And uh like, obviously that is an unreasonable ask, because there's a lot that goes into making a site like Rooster Teeth. You can't just, like, wake up one day and say, like, I'm going to do that. It takes people with a lot of skill, talent, and expertise. But there are
Not even just that,
alternative
it's
options.
unsustainable to have the hosting costs for the videos that people, like, you make a living off of. Like,
Oh yeah,
you cannot.
yeah. And I mean, even
Like, they were, like, a lot of the early internet days were that any video that went viral on any kind of private website ruined that person's life, because they suddenly had this impossible hosting costs from their provider thrown at them, and they were just totally fucked.
And Rooster Teeth was no different.
yeah.
There was the like, Bernie talked about it on a podcast, like, way in the early, when it was like the Drunk Tank or whatever, way before it became what it is now. And he had told a story about how, like, the bandwidth cost for Rooster Teeth was too fucking extreme, and he had been routing it through his own job at the time. Like, he had literally had the server going through his job's internet, so that way he didn't have to pay for the bandwidth to do it. And, like, that's insane. But it doesn't. Thankfully, the world doesn't work that. Like, the internet doesn't work that way anymore. It's a lot less. It's a lot less insane in terms of its bandwidth costs. We also, like, platforms are a lot easier to make now. We have so many just pop-up shop platform tools. You have Docker, who can just make Twitter in, like, in 30 minutes or something,
Mhm.
and just prop it up now. We have progressed a huge amount since then. But obviously, because the incentive to have ownership or make something yourself is really low, the more complicated it becomes. you tend to not like want to do that. You obviously want to be like, no, I don't want to I don't want to have to deal with managing both this completely like this basically just a landing page for my creative endeavors. I don't want to have to manage that website on top of also trying to like pump out the amount of content I need to survive and doing enough social media marketing, whatever, to get
Yeah,
more
yeah.
people to come to me. And like, yeah, at some point you start becoming like overburdened with how much you're doing. And I don't know. It just, at some level, it's this problem of I, there's an unsustainability level, and Twitter is just kind of like a band-aid over a much bigger problem, which is that creative endeavors tend to be very unsustainable uh unless there are a lot of factors that happen to just go right for you. And I don't think I think that itself is a bigger problem. I don't think it should be that way. And I also don't think that artists should have to struggle as much as they do to find a place to just be artists. It's very weird that like art in itself, like Twitter is the worst place to put art. I hate art on Twitter. It is like Instagram is a better place to put art, and Instagram sucks to put art on. But at least Instagram is like built to be a picture platform. But Twitter is like such dog shit at this, and it drives me bonkers. Like if I go to an artist and I go like, man, I love this guy's art. I want to look more at it, and I go to the media tab, and suddenly there's like reaction gifs in there. Why the
Oh yeah,
fuck
no,
are
it's
these in
the
here?
worst when they don't
What
just
is
have a link
like
to a gallery.
just
Because
yeah, just
Twitter's
looking
good for
and
finding art, but it's the worst for browsing art.
Yes.
you know what's really annoying? What the most fucking annoying thing is that there's this button in Twitter. You click on the more button and you go to Creator Studio and you go to this thing that says Media Studio. And when you click on that, you suddenly have a fucking gallery with all the pictures you've ever uploaded to your fucking Twitter account that people can't see but you. Why? Why can't you just curtail that to doing exactly what you want it to be? Why can't I just say, I want to make a whole little platform, a whole little playlist of all the pictures I've ever uploaded, and then just have that available for people to just come and look at? Would- Wouldn't that be nice? And just obviously, there's no incentive. There's no reason to do it. Twitter has no fucking reason to do it because artists are the lowest, obviously on the lowest bar of what like they care about in terms of user changes. They've spent a lot more time making sure that there's a lot better features for like verified users, for getting factual information out, and something even as stupidly mundane as like the way that tweets are made. So, or not tweets are made, but like the way that retweets are done. So, like, oh, it's easier to retweet pictures and videos now. And it's like, oh, okay, but it still comes to the problem of like all of this media that people are sharing with one another is an ass to deal with on the site. It's a pain in the ass to find, to manage. Like the search function sucks on Twitter. If you type in anything in the search feature,
It does
you
not
might
work.
as well not. Like what? Like this site is.
I literally
fucking dog
searched Twitter
shit.
by
And
searching
somehow,
on Google while saying to search Twitter
Yes.
on Google because the
Yes,
search. Granted, no site's search function works. They're incredibly bad. But what's really funny is that like specifically, if you know someone's name, you can't find them on Twitter. The best you can find is people replying to them if you're lucky, and then click
Yeah.
on the username from the reply. Like for some reason, the specific person you're trying to look up is specifically not in the results every time. It's so consistent.
it's
But we got to wrap
annoying,
this up.
and it's just at the end of the day, I lament and regret that we accidentally have managed to isolate the internet into the worst possible pillars, and everyone has to fit around these really awful, shitty built platforms. And when now that one of them is in like, well, two of them technically, but one is in like obviously open fire state, it's seeing people like, what am I gonna do? And it's like, oh no, we've like, well, not we, but like the royal we, like, oh no, the internet is like kind of made this whole previous like knowledge go extinct. You didn't need to know how to deal with stuff like managing a website or even just like customizing a website in its entirety, because like that, why would you need to? You can just upload it here or onto DeviantArt or like whatever. You can just upload it to a platform site and be done with it. And it's like that platforms are great because a lot of people can easily go to them and they find them out, but they're also terrible because platforms cannot be trusted in any capacity. They are not your friend, and they definitely will never worry about you in their entire existence. And like the best thing you can do is just try to like you just you need a storefront. You need a place that people know to find you at, like a regular business does. Like while it sucks, yeah, and like obviously most business owners don't know architecture. They don't build their own goddamn buildings. But like at some level, once you have that front, once you have that land, then you can kind of from there grow around it. You can use Twitter to market that place that you have and tell people like that's the place that I put my stuff on. And like it sounds awful and it sounds backwards and like no one wants to deal with it. But I think that like unfortunately it kind of there is going to be
People
a need to
have
start
personal
being a little bit
sites,
more.
just no one looks at them. Doesn't
That's
really
the
matter
thing,
how
is,
much
like,
you try to
but no-
advertise
but-
them or whatever. Like people just stay on the 3 platforms. That's just how the user base works.
Yeah, and I just don't. I feel bad.
It's like
'cause
trying to
that's
play a
it's
different
obvious.
MMO. Like, especially like
Yeah.
in the first decade of WoW, it was like every time you tried to play any other MMO, your friends might look for a week or they would just ignore you completely. And then everyone would go right back to WoW by the end of the month. And it was just like, all right, well, we tried. Anyway, if you want to send questions, send them to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com. And maybe we'll make a new podcast sooner this time. I don't know.
Maybe, hopefully.
Our schedule, as I said at the beginning, is it's a mess. It's a mess
I think it
finding
depends
the
more on
place
Bird
for all
if he
the things
wants
we're
to play.
doing.
If he wants to play Monster
It
Prom,
is-
Bird.
Well, I think we might
We'll
switch
probably
it to
be.
Monster Proms on Fridays, so because that's when Bird's usually around anyway,
Oh,
and then
right,
we might
right.
do
Yeah.
Outbreak instead of the podcast on Sundays, so that we can get through that. But then Outbreak will end in like a month and a half, probably, or something. So like
Maybe if
then we don't have to
worry.
worry about it anymore. And
Oh,
then things will go
we'll see
back
you
to
next
time.
normal, and then we'll probably maybe we'll
We'll
alternate
figure it
between
out.
podcasts and art videos. I don't know. Those are fun to make, stressful. No one watches them, but see you guys next time.
Aw.
Bye.
Bye.